All right, welcome you guys. This is the Fundamentals podcast. We're back at it. We have Brandon Joe Williams with us today. Hopefully, this is going to be an exciting podcast. It's going to cover a lot of topics. We have Rez with us. If you haven't been here before, this is our new Fundamentals channel. You'll find all of our content for interviews. Me and Rez, our collaborations will be posted there on Fundamentals, as it's spelled out in the background there. You want to introduce yourself, Rez?
Yeah, I'm just Rez, and I'm the co-host here on Fundamentals, which is part of Freedom Unchained, which is Garrett's channel. And we're here basically to talk about fundamentals of law and freedom, sovereignty, and a little bit of anything. We've got Brandon on. This is Brandon Joe Williams. And welcome to the show. We're glad to have you. Originally, we were going to talk about micronations, and we sensed bringing this up with you. We already had an episode with a fellow out of England on that topic. It's still an interesting topic, but we were also curious about PMAs, the micronations, where the trusts, like for businesses and such. So really, it's a free for all. For if you had a topic in mind, we'd go down that path too.
I don't typically talk about nations because it's so simple, and the problem with the conversation is it's so ungodly simple that people just can't believe that it's this simple. And that's really, it's an emotional block. That's really, and I don't really even know how to. The only way I know how to really address that is to make it seem like it's more complicated. That way it's more consumable to people, but I just feel like I'm lying. It's just not, it's so simple. It's mind boggling. It doesn't even make sense how simple it is. A nation is just a group or body that's at peace as per the legal definition. And nobody knows what that definition is. It's a very simple definition. It's just a nation that has good internal order, and then a nation that has good external order by, understanding and spreading understanding between groups and nations. So there's an actual action that the nation has to be doing. And that's why you see all these nonprofit organizations, and you go on their websites, and it's all about, we're doing this peace thing, we're doing over here, we're in Africa, we're doing this, we're doing that, because that's their display of the definition of the word peace. They have to have that in order to legally have their own nation. I don't even know if any of these nonprofits even know that. Or if they do, they don't say it because they don't want other people knowing, because they're also tax havens. I don't know what is going on, but it's literally that simple. The definition of the word peace is literally all you need to build your own nation. The legal definition of the word peace.
So have you heard of some of these movements? Like there's a movement in Arkansas. It's like an all-white community. There's another one in South Africa. They're essentially nations with that same definition, I think. But have you heard of either of those?
Yeah, the guy who runs the one in Arkansas is Ardville. Is that right?
I think so.
I know him as his X handle. I believe that's what you're talking about, Ardville. So I messaged him. A million people sent me his stuff. So I went and I messaged him and I said, hey, I want to let you know I've kind of already done all the research on this. If you'd like to see it, here it is. We went back and forth on a few messages, and then he ran off, and he was getting sued recently. And then he hired a bunch of lawyers to do a bunch of legal research. And I posted on one of his posts. I said, you don't need to do any of that. I've already got it all here for you. It's all free. Here it is. Here you go. And I never heard from him again in Messenger. I followed up a couple times, never heard back, and then he never responded on my comments. So I don't know what else to. He's probably got the lawyers in his ear, and they're saying, this guy's fucking crazy. His name is one stupid fuck. He calls himself King Pickle Fuck, and all of his quote unquote legal research. None of it's going to work, and none of it's ever worked, and it's all sovereign citizen horseshit. And I look at it as, he's got something to gain. These other attorneys, if they're talking in his ear, they have something to gain because he's going out and saying, hey, donate for this legal research team. And I don't want anything from these people. I'm like, here's everything you need on a silver platter. You don't need a login. I don't even want to fucking talk to you. Really, not that I don't like you. I have a lot going on and I don't really give a shit. Here's everything you need on a silver platter for free. Have a good life. So why anyone wouldn't be able to see that lawyers talking in your ear have something to gain from you? They're obviously, the guy's got 68,000 followers on X. He's putting up these links and he's saying the money doesn't go to me, it goes to the lawyers, and we need to do this and blah 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 blah. God knows what kind of donations they're getting, and they don't want that gravy train to get cut off. Now you also got to think too, if that's true, they're not going to ever want to finish the research. Because if you finish the research, you're not going to get your donations anymore. So the whole thing is set up for failure. And the idea that no one can see this is just ridiculous. And I'm not going to be the savior of everybody. I've got too much going on to try to figure all that out. So if someone wants to do that and behave like that, then I'm not going to have anything to do with it. You can count me the fuck out real hard. You know what I mean? That's a whole lot of headache that I will not be a part of. So
did you have a question, Mark? Garrett?
Well, I was just curious. Do you think there's anybody out there that's actually setting these things up properly? Or you just think they're all kind of in the legal, entangled in those ideas of the legalese kind of system?
It goes both ways, because the part that no one's talking about except me is, no matter what you write, no matter what you put together, everyone presumes that the person that's going to be looking at it knows the difference between these things. And I think that's the real problem. It's like, oh, did you do it right? Did you submit it right? Oh, did you do it right? Did you submit it right? Right against whose understanding, against whose reality, against the reality of the judge or the clerk who's going to be looking at it in the court case. They have no fucking idea, probably. So it's one of those things where right is so subjective, Yeah. Like, for example, people say like, oh, do you have a foreign ecclesiastical spindthrift, purple, Eastern facing foreign trust? And I'm like, dude, I want to kill myself right now. I actually want to feed my dick into a wood chipper, because the thing is it's like, foreign to what? People say foreign trust. Foreign to what? Foreign to Venezuela?
I see things like, I do a lot of the trust research. I got, the art of the passing the buck, going through there, understanding like it's all about who has the possession of the property, the trustees that are set up, how hard is it?
The word foreign is entirely relative.
Yeah.
Foreign to what? Foreign to California, foreign to United States. Which definition are you using in that one? Foreign to France, foreign to Australia, foreign to what? The Pacific Ocean? Foreign to what?
Foreign to God, foreign to...
Sure, whatever. But I'm just saying, even if you said foreign to the United States, you'd be like, whoa, hold on a second. Which definition are you using? The answer to that would be the definition from the federal statutes from the USC, which would mean the District of Columbia.
The corporate state.
So the definition of the United States, if you use that definition, and nobody even knows that definition, because people will say, oh, it's Washington, D.C. Yes, but it's also all of the U.S. territories, all of the insular possessions. It would also include things like dockyards. It would also include things like military zones. It would also include foreign embassies, because technically embassies of the U.S. in other countries operate as though they're in the District of Columbia under 4 U.S.C. 72. So it's not just Washington, D.C., even though, yes, that's the simple answer. The real answer is Washington, D.C., and anything in the world that legally operates as though it's in Washington, D.C., which would include you as citizens.
Yes, it would definitely include you, me, or whoever.
Well, it would include U.S. citizens, of which I am not, so it wouldn't include me, but it would include U.S. citizens. So the thing is that all U.S. citizens are also treated as though they're in the District of Columbia. And they say that literally verbatim in 26 USC 7701 subsection A39. I don't know how to do a share screen.
Yes, you can do that.
So I'll show you a couple things here.
It won't be too difficult. There we go.
Did I get it?
Yeah,
you do. Do you want to do it in above, Garrett?
I'll
or
probably mess it up, but I can expand it here.
Yeah, on my screen, it's different than whatever you're recording.
I'll just expand it just like this. But yeah, what I was saying is the courts in your documents, it doesn't really matter what you put on the documents if they kind of don't understand it or don't care to understand it. So like what I was trying to explain is that the harder you make them be able to attach jurisdiction to a singular person, like if you have a trust that there's multiple trustees and there's multiple people controlling the trust, then it's harder for them to lock down one person and then force an order onto them to control them, kind of thing. So that's kind of how
Well, location and citizenship, because the trust is a person. So is that person under the jurisdiction of the United States as per the United States definition from most federal statutes, or is it not? That's the question. It doesn't matter how many different, because one trustee may be under the jurisdiction and one trustee may not be under the jurisdiction. So you've also got that too, right? But you have 26.
My understanding is that if one person's under the jurisdiction and they can't force that trustee to make the other trustees act because the other trustees aren't in jurisdiction, it's kind of, they might have jurisdictions, but their orders are pointless. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and I don't really think any of this has ever even been argued in pleadings. I don't even think any of this has ever even gone into the courts in any meaningful way to even have this discussion. I've never even seen cases in the 1800s talking about stuff like this.
Yeah.
So people are running around, and I'm guilty of this too, and they're trying to figure out all this hypothetical stuff, and they're trying to go like 480,000 steps beyond anything that's ever even been talked about in the courts. So, if you don't learn court procedure and you don't learn how to operate using the rules of evidence and the rules of civil procedure and all this kind of stuff, you can't even bring this stuff into the courts in the first place. So not only do we have a barrier of it's never been discussed, we have another barrier of no one wants to discuss it. That's a huge barrier. That's what I run into all the time. And then the third barrier is the only way to force them to discuss it is you have to understand all of the rules perfectly. And that's been my problem. My problem was, first off, I figured it all out. Then I tried to get it into the courts. It got everyone ran away like I was a leper about ready to explode and put viruses, like walking black death. Okay, how do I force this conversation? How do I put guns in people's mouths and look right into their fucking eyes while I have my hand wrapped around their throat? Okay, court procedure. Okay, now we have to learn that, you see? And that's kind of where we're at. We haven't mastered that yet. So I'm still working on that. And that's where the next iteration of the free course is going to be at. It's going to be, here's the law. They're not going to want to talk to you. And then here's how you force the conversation. Yeah, it's basically, if you want to, you could literally classify this as like political rape, and it honestly wouldn't even be like a horrible explanation of what I'm trying to do. Do you think we are going to have this conversation, whether you fucking like it or not? If you cry, if you run away, if you file things in, if you freak out, if you threaten, I don't care. You could do anything on the planet. You would need to kill me. If you killed me, obviously it would end it. But that's the only option, is you have to kill me. That's it. If you don't kill me, I will force this conversation. You can kill me. That will end the conversation. That's the only way to end the conversation.
I think there's an issue with what I call technocracy as well. Like, you've got people that are so embedded into what they were told, and they listen to the people with the robes or the PhDs or whatever, and they can't get out of that mind frame.
Yeah. But here, I want to show you this, and then I'll turn off the share screen because I don't want to keep the share screen on all the time because
you can put it above you too. Do you see where it says present?
No, I was gonna mess up our screen, so it's good just like
Oh,
that.
okay.
I don't know. I don't see anything else. So 26 USC 7701, subsection A39. This is the tax code. This is the Internal Revenue Code. If any citizen or resident of the United States does not reside in and is not found in any United States judicial district, such citizen or resident shall be treated as residing in the District of Columbia for purposes of any provision of this title relating to A, jurisdiction of courts, or B, enforcement of summons. And I finally figured out where in the hell this comes from. It's 4 USC 72, but we should look at 4 USC 71 first. So 4 USC 71, permanent seat of government, all that part of the territory of the United States included within the present limits of the District of Columbia shall be the permanent seat of government of the United States. We'll go to the very next thing, 72. All offices attached to the seat of government shall be exercised in the District of Columbia and not elsewhere, except as otherwise expressly provided by law. So all federal courts operate under 4 USC 72. So you have a federal court, a district court in California. It's not under California, it's under the District of Columbia. It operates under 4 USC 72. So that court, that's why the federal courts have all these weird rules when you go on their property. All of a sudden, all the rules change. Because technically, when you walk on that property in law, you're actually in the District of Columbia. Same thing with airports. You wonder where all your rights went when you go to the airport? The airport operates under 4 USC 72. The airport operates as though you just stepped into the District of Columbia.
Yeah.
That's the part that's really goofy. I don't know how they took over the airport. So I've never gone down that rabbit hole, but that's from the Patriot Act. And somehow they took over the whole airport and converted it into basically a government zone. And the airport operates as though it's in the District of Columbia. It happened through the Patriot Act. I don't know all the details. I don't know every single little detail, but that's why people wonder, like, well, when I get on a plane, they can search me and they've got this thing and they've got these facial scanners and it's all the stuff now. Well, yeah, because the airport operates as though you're in the District of Columbia, which is not one of the 50 states of the Union. Technically, the District of Columbia isn't even under the Constitution in the ways that people think. It's actually a congressional zone. It's under Congress. It's under the exclusive territorial jurisdiction of Congress. So it's a completely different zone that operates entirely differently than what you see in the Constitution. So what is constitutional and what's not constitutional when you're in those zones changes, right? But yeah. If you go back to the tax code and you look up the definition of a trade or business in subsection A14, subsection A26, the term trade or business includes the performance of the functions of a public office. And people always go, all the bar cards, whenever I bring this up, the word includes means it can have other things. Well, first off, the definition of the word definition means boundaries or limitations of meaning. So no, that's not what it means, because if that's what it meant, then this wouldn't be a definition as per the definition of the word definition. Plus, we can go to 26 USC 162, trade or business expenses, the very long page, and you will see that every single one of these points is something having to do with public office. So no, that's not what it is. The answer is you can pretty much replace the word includes with it is. The only thing that this term means is the performance of a functions of a public office. So what does a public office operate under? 4 USC 72. All offices attached to the seat of government shall be exercised in the District of Columbia and not elsewhere, except as otherwise expressly provided by law. That's what A39 is. A39 is just telling you that in a different way, in a more specific way in the tax code without having to pull 4 USC 72 and bring it over. It's basically 4 USC 72 for the tax code. If you go to subsection A9 and A10, The term United States, when used in a geographical sense, includes only the states and the District of Columbia. The word state is defined just below that. The term state shall be construed to include the District of Columbia where such construction is necessary to carry out provisions of this title. So the definition of the term United States, when used in a geographical sense, includes only the District of Columbia and the District of Columbia. That's how you'd read that. It all makes perfect sense when you understand the definitions.
Yeah. So that's your technique, is to use their terms against them, and you're trying to force it down their throat.
Well, no, they've never even I mean, force it down their throat. I mean, yeah.
Well, into the court. That's what you were saying. You were trying to.
Well, a lot of times they're so flabbergasted about all this stuff, even themselves. Yeah. They've never seen any of this. They've never had anybody bring any of this. They've never ever had to deal with anything like this. A lot of them have been bar cards for 20 years, 25 years, and they just get really, really angry and emotional. They just kind of flip out, and it's hilarious.
It's a similar. I had an experience with the county clerk with a passport application. It clearly states on the passport application that you can use an expired passport.
Yeah, it says,
Yep, and it also says you can
on the website too. Yep.
As well. Yeah,
that's right. Yep.
So I brought it there, and they wouldn't accept it because I said that can only go towards one of those two things, and they were insistent about it. I called the State Department, and I was greeted with the same response initially, but then I asked them, "Hey, I've got this in front of me. Please follow along with me. Read this." And she put me on hold and comes back and said, "Yes, sir. If you have this problem again, you're correct." But this is technocracy again. You've got people educated, but not educated enough, and you present these things to them, and they have no clue what you're talking about.
Well, it's so much worse than that because nobody even knows what a U.S. citizen is. So
yes,
it's way worse than that. It's way worse than that.
It's a dirty word.
Yeah, it's what is a U.S. The original U.S. citizen was the Negro. That was the first U.S. citizen. So nobody seems to know that because what was it? July 9th, 1868 supposedly is when the 14th Amendment was ratified, even though it wasn't. But that's the date that everybody presumes it was. That from 1868 until 1886, a U.S. citizen was only for non-whites. Had nothing to do with legal fictions. They hadn't added in legal fictions, and legal fictions were added in a case called Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad Company in 1886, and it wasn't even like part of the opinion necessarily. I don't really know exactly. It was like a footnote or like a side note, like at the beginning of the case before they even give the opinion. It's like a note above the opinion. And it says like before argument, this thing was brought up where like corporations are considered persons under the 14th Amendment. And then there's a quote that it's like, yeah, everyone here in the Supreme Court agrees that that's true. But it's like a little sub note like above the opinion. And then there was a bunch of like press releases after that during that time period in the newspapers and stuff like that. Oh, corporations are people now and like all this stuff. And it's all very confusing. So for 30, what was it? From 1868 until 1886, what was that be? 18 years. So for 18 years, legal fictions were not part of the definition of persons in the 14th Amendment. They were added 18 years later. The original persons was Negroes, and then that was expanded to non-whites basically immediately. But the original U.S. citizen was the Negro.
There's an interesting case with those from American Samoa, in that they are the only ones they recognize as being non-citizen U.S. nationals.
Yeah.
And being non-citizen, related to what you just said, keeps them from being slaves, and they're freemen basically, aren't they? I don't think they know how good they've got it there. I know a lot of them want to become citizens, and that's probably the last thing that they would want to do.
It's irrelevant because the state citizenship category is by far the best category, because the non-citizen nationals don't have the Third Amendment, the Seventh Amendment, the Ninth Amendment, or the 10th Amendment, and they also don't have the entire Fifth or Sixth Amendments. They only have partial Fifth and Sixth Amendments.
I completely agree with you. What I'm saying, though, is that it's better than what everyone, 99% of the populace, thinks as a citizen. It's better than that.
Yeah, people who think they are U.S. citizens, it's slightly better than that, because they don't have a tax liability and stuff like that. But the thing is that the U.S. citizen is just the sole proprietorship, and it's not. People who are born in America, who are white, who were born in a state, they're actually by far in the best condition, because all you have to do is just explain to them that the Social Security number is just the taxpayer identification number of the sole proprietorship, and that they're a business owner. That's it. Bang. You don't even need to file nothing. You don't need to do any affidavits. I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars printing and sending registered mail and doing all this stuff throughout all my research. You don't need to do any of that. Here I am, 4 months or 4 years after the initial launch of my website. I've done like 80 million different little research projects, some small, some big. Almost all of it was trying to get to where we're at now, and almost all of it is just completely unnecessary. There's no paperwork required. You are a business owner. If you were born in one of the 50 states of the union and you're white, you are a business owner. You are a citizen of the state that you were born in. And then if you moved and you're now domiciling in a different state, you'd be. So I was born a citizen of Indiana, but now I'm a citizen of California, right? But the sole proprietorship's always been a citizen of the District of Columbia and always will be a citizen of the District of Columbia. So the sole proprietorship, if it's moved into a state, it's just a resident in that state. It's just like a guest or a foreigner. The word resident means guest or foreigner, right? So you can move the sole proprietorship around separately from you. And if I do another screen share, it's so, all of this is just getting simpler and simpler and simpler as we learn more and more. The W-9 form, a lot of the answers have been right in front of our face all this time. If you look at the W-9 form, it says here, let me zoom in, name of entity / individual. The word entity means business. It's basically that simple. An entry is required for a sole proprietor or disregarded entity. They call the sole proprietorship a disregarded entity. You can see it here too, individual / sole proprietor. As far as I'm concerned, the word individual, the word sole proprietorship, the word business, the term disregarded entity, it all means the same thing. It's all referring to the sole prop. And if you go back in time, for hundreds of years, they used to call the sole proprietorship an individual proprietorship. So I think this term individual is just a shortening of a term that's been around for hundreds of years called an individual proprietorship. So you can almost take this and say like individual proprietorship / sole proprietorship, of which is considered a disregarded entity. Enter the owner's name on line 1 and enter the business. They're calling it a business, and they say the same thing on the IRS website. IRS definition of a sole proprietorship. It's a business, someone who owns an unincorporated business. So I always ask people when I'm introducing this subject to them in the first time, I say, "Are you a business?" And they say, "No, absolutely not." I go, "There you go. It's that simple. Simplest thing in the world." Enter the business / disregarded entity's name on line 2. So the owner's name would be owner, and the business name would be Brandon Joe Williams registered trademark, because I have a USPTO registered trademark on the name. So this is how you'd write it. This is the owner, and this is the individual / sole proprietorship /disregarded entity. And then you go below that and you click the individual /sole proprietor. And then here for address, they're asking you, what is the address of the business, the sole proprietorship? It's very, very simple. If you go to 8 USC 1101 and you look up the definition of naturalization, which is A23, the term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. So the way that I handled that was I took all the terms that are in that and I broke them all down. Here, let's see. Let me just find this real quick. Right here. So 8 USC 1101 subsection A 23, the term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. Let's replace the word person with the definition for more clarity. Definition comes from 8 USC 1101 subsection B3. In that same area, you'll find the definition of the word person, but I just stick it in here and replace the word person with the exact definition word for word. The term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon an individual or organization. That is the exact definition of the word person. An individual or organization after birth by any means whatsoever. So if you have this U.S. citizen that's a citizen of the District of Columbia, you simply naturalize that U.S. citizen into California by saying it's in California, and then bang, it's a resident of California. You see?
So naturalized national is a bit different than being a just solely national. And I would think also in Article 2, where the discuss the requirement to become a U.S. president, they introduce another term there, which is free-born citizen. I believe that's the word in there. So what are your thoughts on those three categories?
Well, there's two different governments, which is covered in Downs versus Bidwell in 1901. The justice in that case talks about that. I can find that quote. Downs v. Bidwell. We have the justice here talking. His name is Henry Billings Brown, and he says, quote, "We have in this country substantially or practically two national governments, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument, by exercising such powers as other nations of the earth are accustomed to exercise," end quote. And that comes from Down versus Bidwell, 182 U.S. 244, 1901 case. So what he's saying is we have two entirely separate governments in America. We have one under the Constitution, which is called the Republic, which is for white citizens of a state. And the definition of the word state is covered in a case in 1805 called 1805. It's a case called Hepburn and Dundas v. Elsie, 6 U.S. 445, where the Chief Justice John Marshall talks about how the definition of the word state changes and how the District of Columbia would not be actually part of the definition of the word state the way that it's used in the Constitution, because it's a congressional zone outside of constitutional boundaries, just like we just saw in the other quote I just said in Downs versus Bidwell. So we have these two entirely separate zones. One is under the Constitution. That one is for white people. And then we have an entire other one, which originally for the first 100 years or so of our country, it didn't have its own citizenship class. It was considered a congressional zone, and it was filled with white representatives coming from the states. So it was white people over here, white people over here. These white people were from these white people. Then the U.S. citizenship class was born with the 14th Amendment. And that's when everything changed, because now we have these two entirely separate governments with two entirely separate citizenship classes. That's when everything shifted.
Do you think that was an unlawful ratification? Not fully. It wasn't fully ratified, by the way.
The only technically, if you want to get really, 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 really super fucking technical, the only part of it that's technically illegal is the fact that it was never legally ratified, because all the southern states were actually being military occupied, and they literally signed the 14th Amendment with no joke, basically a gun in their fucking mouth cocked, basically.
And some of the northern ones originally accepted it and towards the end wanted to reject it, take it back, and they weren't allowed. Kentucky, to this day, never ratified it. So
I didn't know that, but yeah, it's several of the southern states were literally occupied militarily, and they were like trying to get all the Negroes to go vote, and they were like trying to they stopped all the people from voting who were part of the Southern Rebellion, all the white people, and they were like deliberately trying to send the Negroes to go vote, and it was crazy. But in terms of the basic functionality of like a contract, the basic functionality of consent, it's like rape. These southern states were raped to sign the 14th Amendment. That is the part that's technically illegal. But let's say that all the states ratified it. The functionality of the 14th Amendment in itself and by itself is really not technically illegal. And the reason why is because it's not the constraints of the Constitution have nothing to do with congressional zones, which is covered in many, many cases. The congressional zones are totally separate. Like, for example, like Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a territory. It operates under 4 U.S.C. 72. It operates as though it is the District of Columbia. It's basically an arm of the District of Columbia, which is what I find so fascinating about like something like Jeffrey Epstein. He was supposedly this genius, this tax genius. He was living his island. Yeah, okay, it's fine. It's an island, whatever. But the island was in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The U.S. Virgin Islands is a territory of the United States. It's not even a state. So technically, the island operates as though it's in the District of Columbia, and he had no ability to become a state citizen.
The Puerto Rico, I understand that the Social Security Administration is incorporated there.
Yes.
And back to your comment about rape and the ratification. You listed that as a technicality that would make it unlawful or illegal because of that. But also, I think this is another thing to throw in there. It's almost as though you had a father giving away his daughter for a forced marriage, yet it wasn't her father. It was somebody that was proxied in there on behalf of the North as administrative agents for the North to operate under the Reconstruction, the Reconstruction movement. You follow me?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. The reason why the IRS is in Puerto Rico is because Puerto Rico essentially is in the District of Columbia, legally, like in the legal world. So that makes perfect sense. I mean, why wouldn't they put the IRS just in Washington, D.C.? I don't know. I have no idea. The IRS is considered a non-governmental agency. It's considered a private debt collection company, whom of which is primary client is the U.S. Treasury. So the relationship of all of that is very complicated, because they say that the IRS is a private corporation, and then their primary client is the U.S. Treasury. That's the way they word it. So,
So how do you think all of this applies to like just our basic courts, our trial courts and stuff like that?
Well, all federal courts operate under 4 U.S.C. 72, so they all operate as though they're in the District of Columbia, and that's something that I just very recently figured out. So, like, for example, the UCC, if you're doing like negotiable instruments type stuff, you would actually use the UCC version that's infused and incorporated into the code of the District of Columbia. And no one's ever done that. Ever. That's never happened. And I've been in federal court trying to fight this stuff like crazy, and I never knew that. And I think that's kind of the main issue that I've been having in all my federal cases. But I just filed my first state case. I'm in it. So, it's my first time filing in state court. I seem to be doing a lot better than I ever was in federal court, but that's just because I know which UCC applies in state court. It's very simple. I never knew what UCC applied in federal court. I was trying to figure it out all these years. I was trying to figure it out. I didn't figure it out until recently, 3 or 4 weeks ago. When I was doing all the research for this new state case is actually when I figured it out. So, and I just filed that 30 days ago, 35 days ago.
So what is your game plan? Do you have like a strategy that you're trying to get from point A to point B to kind of force these issues?
Well, yeah, I mean, the plan is just to get all of these types of pleadings and arguments into the courts and just flood the court with the truth of what's going on, because the courts just never heard it. None of the courts have ever heard any of this, ever.
Yeah, but are you like taking certain types of clients on, or are you doing these, cases? Are you trying to find issues for yourself to bring these into the court?
All the above. Everything you just said, clients plus my own cases. Yeah, they're all available on Williams & Williams law firm, so I can show you guys what it looks like if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So if you go to williamsandwilliamslawfirm.com, which is the website I have here that I just showed you these quotes off of. This is the treatise on the word person. This is pretty much like my main written piece besides my book that I have available. And then for people who would like to read my book, you can get that on Amazon. It's called The Guide to the Most Beautiful Woman in the World, the United States of America. This is what it looks like. And you can get it on Amazon. I have it on paperback, hardback, ebook, and audiobook. The audiobook is AI, but it's pretty good. Like, it's actually pretty good. Like, I was pretty nervous about doing it, but then I double checked it, and it had this huge list of all these different types of voices you could use. And I went through it and I found one that I thought was actually pretty good. The audiobook's not the greatest thing in the world, but it is really good. So that's that. But if you go to the current and previous litigation page and you go down, these are all my cases with my clients too. All the way down. Yeah, all the way down. And then we have recap links. So what recap is, it's basically so you have Pacer, which anybody can get a login for Pacer, and then it's 10 cents per page, and you can go through any docket of any case. Recap is a browser extension for Chrome. You can see it here on my extensions tab, Recap. So Recap is basically when you have it installed in your browser, anything that anyone buys on Pacer automatically gets crowdsourced into Recap. So for example, if you go in and you bought, or anyone on the planet, if they had Recap installed in their browser, if they go on Pacer and they bought this memorandum in support of motion, it used to look gray. I can show you. It used to look gray buy on Pacer, but now it'll turn blue when someone buys it. And when it turns blue, it's a free for all. Anyone can come in here, one click, bang, instant access. It's got the original stamp from the court. So it's the exact same file you would have gotten from Pacer, but you don't need a login. It's entirely free to access, and it's instantaneous, and it's much easier to read and look at than Pacer. Pacer looks like it was made in 1992. So, young people kind of go crazy with it because they've just never seen anything like it. You got to get someone who was a little older to even figure out how to really use it well. But one of the things that's so cool about Recap is you can go to the Authorities tab, and the Authorities tab, basically, if it'll load, because this is a nonprofit organization, so sometimes things can be a little jank. Sometimes you'll come on here and it'll be like, hey, We're doing some maintenance, come back in a couple hours. There's a little teeny bit of jankiness, but it's got less jankiness than fucking Pacer anyway. So, but if you go to the authority section, you can see that the filings in this docket cite 33 opinions. And you can actually go through and you can even find the opinions. Let's find one that's really, really one that I know well, if I can find one. I don't see any here that I really know like the back of my hand. That's just too bad. But if we just clicked on, let's say this first one, it'll take us straight to the final opinion. And you can just read it. Combined opinion by Mark R. Kravitz. And you can even click on that. And you can see a picture of the judge. And you can get information about him. So not only is it better than Pacer in so many different ways, but it's really like a whole resource center. And it's totally free. And you don't even need a login. So Recap is fucking awesome. Everything on all of my dockets are all recapped. Because if I didn't buy it, someone else did. So you can go through all of these right now. On a state case, you don't have recap because Pacer is only for federal cases. So what I did was I just did a shareable Dropbox folder, and then I just custom dump each item, and I just name it what it is. Here's the first discovery packet that I sent. And then here is all the docket items. And then that's the title of each docket item. And then you just click on the one that you want, and then it'll just pull up automatically. So it's the same thing, but it's just a little different.
Yeah. Cool. And these are all your cases.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So can you give us a kind of idea of what kind of cases you're looking for and why you're looking for those kind of cases?
Negotiable instruments. That's all I do is negotiable instruments. Okay. I don't do anything else. Okay. So if it's negotiable instruments, I do it. If it's not, I don't really do it. I don't really care to do it, shall we say. Because it's like the only two things I really care about is citizenship and negotiable instruments, because those are the two, to me, those are the two huge, monstrous pillars. And if you know those two pillars, you can do literally anything.
Non-citizen non-citizen state national. Do you pay any attention to capitalizing of the state? S or uppercase or lowercase s.
You're talking about the one on the passport, right? Reference from the passport.
Well, yeah, even for passport, for just in general.
But we've covered this a few times because it also says of the United States, which I think that is telling.
No, I used to teach all that, and I threw all of that out. All of it's gone. And the reason why, I will show you, it's actually very, very simple. I simplified everything, threw all that out. There is no such thing as a state national. It doesn't exist. Never has. It's never mentioned once in any court case since the dawn of our country. I threw that out too. I used to teach that. If you go to the
state
definition,
citizen is a better term.
State citizen is the only term.
Yeah.
There state national. When you say state national, you are. I would file in a motion to dismiss for failure to state a claim. You're not stating any claim when you say state national. You're saying something that doesn't even exist in
What
law.
about going back to your original definition of national, being in peace?
A non-citizen national, like for example, for my nation, the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition, there is no citizenship. There's only non-citizen nationality. But I define non-citizen nationality entirely differently. It's my own definition for my own nation of what that means. Yeah, it's very similar to the one you're going to find in Title 8. But the thing is that due to so many differences in the way that our nations are built, like for example, my nation doesn't really recognize legal fictions as persons. So the word person in the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition wouldn't really include legal fictions. Well, when we build trust and stuff like that, we'll say that the word person, just like they say in the tax code. Dude, everything I do is straight out of the fucking exactly what they do. So let's take the word person from the tax code, which is A1, right? This is how they say it. The term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, a trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. So when we're writing a trust on behalf of the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition, we'll say the term person shall be construed to mean in other countries outside of the nation of the Amnesty Coalition, men, women, children, and legal fictions, or whatever. So we use the exact same style they do to write the definitions. But the word person, it's unique because it's like within the domestically, the nation of the Amnesty Coalition doesn't really consider legal fictions as persons. But the thing is that when a trust is born, which means brought wholly into separate existence, it's a legal definition of the word birth. When a trust is brought wholly into separate existence, within the nation of the Amnesty Coalition, that trust wouldn't necessarily be considered a person. But when that trust is then naturalized somewhere, as per the definition of the term naturalization, which is the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever, the United States considers that trust a person. So it becomes a person once naturalized. Do you see that?
Yeah, which is different than a just soli.
I don't know what a just soli is.
Just soli means person born of the soil.
Yeah, I just say white man.
Yeah,
because that's the way they say it in the 1800s, white man, Negro, and they use the word negress for a black female. I'd never heard that term before I started reading 1800s. I've never in my life heard the term negress.
Oh,
but that's the term. So
I'm a little older. I've heard it before.
I've never, dude, in my whole life, I don't think I ever heard that.
And my family are Hoosiers.
My family's from India. Yeah, I'm Hoosier too. Yeah, so it's one of those things. When I read that, I was like, "What the fuck is a negress?" I was like, "Oh, okay." Had to look it up, right? But the thing is it's I just say white man, and then I say sole proprietorship on all my documentation. You'll see white man, sole proprietorship, and then I'm a citizen of California, and the sole proprietorship is a citizen of the District of Columbia, but is a resident of California. It's that simple. And I'm a business owner. I'm the owner as per the W-9. And if anybody, I've never had anybody ask me about this. What's so funny is you start talking like this. I thought for sure it was going to have blowback because I've had blowback on almost everything I've ever done. But I started talking like that. And all of a sudden in court, everyone was okay with it. No one asked any questions. The defense stopped fighting me about it. The judge stopped asking me about it. I go, holy shit. I said, this is it. I got it. I can't believe it. And I was ready. I was like, all right, here we go. Let's try this one. This is I tried this and I tried this and I tried that. And I tried non-citizen national. I did all this stuff. And it was just this, you'll go through all my cases and it's just us just beating the living fuck out of each other and me going to appeals and fucking to the death. Right. And then I started doing, I'm the owner on behalf of the Sole Prop. Sole Prop is a citizen of District of Columbia, resident of California. I'm a citizen. And then I went even farther and I just don't even talk about myself at all. I just say the plaintiff is a sole proprietorship. The sole proprietorship is a resident of California. And that's all I say now. And it's gotten like so simple. I don't get any issues. Zero. I don't even talk about it's as though I don't even exist. And then if you go into the complaint and you read further, it'll say the plaintiff and his owner, or the plaintiff's owner did this. The plaintiff's owner went down and paid to have the power turned back on at the building. The plaintiff's owner is available for phone calls, but I'm not listed as a party at all. And that's when everything became really smooth and simple.
So I'm in family cases right now. So I know you don't have children or anything, but so how would you approach that if you're going at it?
Well, the children are property, and that property is inside of a trust, and the trustee is essentially the judge, right? And there's two businesses that are fighting to gain this property. You have your sole prop, and then the sole prop of whoever else is trying to fight to get the property, right? So the thing is that what you have is you have two businesses that are fighting for property rights. And what makes that so difficult is the emotional aspect of that, because to you, it's not like that. To you, it's like, I'm about ready to kill a motherfucker. Give me a knife. It's going inside someone's fucking throat. I'm going to watch them bleed and look into their eyes as life leaves the fucking body, right? But to everybody else, it's just two businesses fighting for property rights.
Well, they hate the word property. Like, they've literally told me your child's not property.
Well, that's false. That's entirely false. That's factually, legally false. So the thing is that
that's the difficulty that I have is the process and the procedure to force them into, defining things or clarifying things.
And that's why my whole platform starting this year is shifting entirely to procedure. That's all we're doing. 3.0 is going to be all about like probably 50, 60%, 70%, maybe even 80% of all the content. And 3.0 is going to be all procedural.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. You can talk about this stuff all day long, and if you don't understand the procedure or how to conduct or how the courts work, then
like, for example, you have presumptions in a state case. You would need to look up where in the civil procedure presumptions are located. But like, for example, in the federal courts, they just call them presumptions. But in the state court, in California state court, there's two types of presumptions, which I thought was fat. I was like, what the hell? There's two types? I didn't see this before. This is new to me, right? You have conclusive and you have rebuttable. So conclusive presumptions are like presumptions that conclude immediately, essentially. I don't really know exactly how these all work. And then you have rebuttable presumptions, which is like, here's a presumption that I'm putting forward, and then now I'm going to give them a chance to rebut it. That's the one that I'm familiar with. That's how we do it in federal court. So I used the rebuttable presumptions in my state case, right? So presumptions. So you can put a presumption on the record. So for example, the presumption is that the child is property. The presumption is that the plaintiff is a sole proprietorship. The presumption is that the defendant is a sole proprietorship. So what do we have? We have two businesses fighting over property rights. That would be presumption, 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 presumption. And then as per the rules of presumptions, when you push that presumption across the table, it shifts the burden of evidence. It's kind of complicated because it doesn't shift the burden of persuasion. It only shifts the burden of evidence. So now the person that you're pushing the presumption against is now burdened to prove yay or nay of that presumption. So if the judge says, "Oh no, it's not," like, whoa, judge, this is not. I'm not pushing this presumption on you. I'm pushing this presumption on the defendant. It's their job to prove it with evidence, Your Honor. You're just a referee. Chill out, bro.
Yeah,
chill out.
They love to try to play for the other side.
Well, no, the reason why you're experiencing that is because family court's not a real court. That's why you're experiencing that. Well, if you were in state court or federal court, you wouldn't get as much of that kind of behavior. That's a real good indicator that the court you're in isn't real.
Yeah. And
by real is, I know a lot of my own people are like, it's not real in your state courts. I get it. I get all that. But I'm saying real with it. Okay, so everything that we have access to, what's the closest thing to what's real? That's my definition of real. So the state courts and the federal courts are the closest thing we have to what's real. So I call that real. If you want to be real fucking specific and say real doesn't exist. We don't have any real courts because real courts would be white people, only white men above the age of 21 would be able to be part of the jury. And I believe maybe they would need to be landowners. I know to vote, you have to be a white male above the age of 21. You have to own land. I don't know about juries. I know it's a white male above the age of 21, but I'm not sure if they have to own land to be part of a jury.
I think that changed from state to state.
Yeah, that could be. That's a very good point. That could be. But my point is, yes, they're all fake because they all have U.S. citizen juries. So immediately, they're fake if they have a U.S. citizen jury. Yes. People always go into court and they go, "Oh, is this an Article 3, Article 5, Article 1? That's all." Like, they don't want to, nobody even knows. Just say, "Your Honor, do you have the capacity to put together a jury of white citizens of California?" And then you also got to think too, the 7th Amendment me just look this up real quick. Actually, incorporation doctrine. Because you also got to think too, U.S. citizens do not have the incorporated right to be tried by a jury of their peers from the same area in which the crime took place. State citizens do. So in order to figure that out, we have to go to the incorporation doctrine. I'm going to do a share screen. And we have to go down and we have to look at which of those Fifth Amendment, partially incorporated, right to indictment by a grand jury, not incorporated. So this is where this whole like being charged through information was born, like traffic tickets or the state presses charges against you. All that comes from Hurtado v. California, which is a fucking case from 1884. To this day, that's the case that birthed state prosecutions that are not done by a grand jury, right? Now, a state citizen does have the right to indictment by a grand jury. A state citizen, Hurtado versus California is completely irrelevant, has nothing to do with state citizenship, right? So that's important for that kind of thing. And then this is really important. So in the Sixth Amendment, right to jury selected from residents of the state and district where the crime occurred, not incorporated. So residents and U.S. citizens do not have the right to a jury selected from residents of the state and district where the crime occurred. State citizens do. So the first question, if I was ever brought in, it wouldn't be, is this an Article 1, Article 3? I don't give a fuck about any of that. It'd be, does this court even have the administrative capacity? Meaning, do they have lists of people, or do they even have a computer system that could possibly select a jury from people? They would need to be white state citizens of California that are from the state and district where the crime occurred. If they can't, it's an immediate motion to dismiss. If they can't even build the fucking jury, you see? Yeah. So it's a totally different conversation, right? It's a totally different conversation. Seventh Amendment is not incorporated at all. The Seventh Amendment is what gives you the right to a jury trial in a federal case. That's why you see so many federal cases thrown out before it ever gets to the point of a jury, because a U.S. citizen or a resident does not have the right to a jury in a federal case. They don't have the Seventh Amendment, but I do. So if they try to dismiss my case in federal court, I'd file an objection because I'm a state citizen, not a federal citizen. I have the full Seventh Amendment. I don't need incorporation, which again, no one has ever brought this stuff into a court. Ever. It's never happened. So the thing is, people are so pissed off at the courts and pissed off at this and pissed off at that. If we don't start at least bringing these conversations into the courts, how do we expect change to occur? Because the courts are just referee centers. The judges are just referees. If no one brings these claims, then no change can ever occur. It is a physical and legal impossibility. If people started bringing these claims, the entire legal system would change very rapidly. Very rapidly.
Well, I try to stay out of family court as long as I could. I actually brought a chancellery, a CA's trust, all that kind of stuff. Not really good on all of that, but as I was just trying to learn it and try my hardest to stay out of the court and evoke the court based off of calling, the mother a trustee and I was a trustee and the child was the beneficiary of the trust and all that kind of stuff. But that's the one where the judge is like, the child's not property, all that kind of.
Yeah, the child is property, and it's not their place to say whether it is or not. If you push a presumption across and the opposing party fails to provide evidence to rebut it, then it is. Even if it's not, it is. You can even go that far. You're manufacturing facts out of thin air. And the judge can't do a fucking thing about it. So that would be actually what's called abuse of discretion. That's the actual technical term. And that's what appellate courts look for when a case comes from the lower courts to the upper court. They're looking for abuse of discretion. But if you don't call it out as abuse of discretion and object, that's called preserving the record for appeal.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on a second. Objection. That's abuse of discretion. And now he knows. Now he knows that you know. And he knows that you're going to take it to an appeal, and he does not want that to happen. And now all of a sudden, his behavior changes, right? But the thing is, in a family court, you're not going to get any of that. because it's not a real court.
Well, I still have my 2 cases going. So I got my family court one going, just because I need, some kind of contact with my child. So I just had to give in just to be able to get something. But I still have my trust one going on. So I'm a little bit calmer on that one, letting that one, sit there. Her lawyer's supposed to be doing a motion to dismiss and all that kind of stuff.
What's going on with that one?
They pretty much have ignored it. Haven't really done anything. The last time I went in there for a default, but I decided to tell them that, the other side hasn't answered anything, and they said they're gonna do a motion to dismiss. So, but they gave them 21 days or something like that. I haven't got anything back to them, so I don't know.
You're the plaintiff. You're the plaintiff in a case.
Yeah,
and it's involving a trust. The plaintiff is a trust.
Well, I'm claiming a trust by process of law.
So an implied trust.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you're saying that there's an implied trust for what like what's the cause of action? Like, what are you trying to?
Well, it's for the beneficiary. The child is the beneficiary.
It's a civil case, and you're saying that there's an implied trust where your child is a beneficiary, and you're suing who?
The mother for the breach of trustee.
So you have 2 cases involving the same child. You have one in family court and one in civil court.
Yeah, because the judge in they're both in civil. They're both technically civil. The one's CH, which is trust administration. However they classify it. I don't think it matters how they classify it, but yeah, he was just like, I'm not going to hear anything about the custody. That has to be dealt with in family court. So I was just getting so much pushback on that. She wasn't answering anything. It's not like I don't know if I'm doing anything correct, but I'm learning as I go. So better to learn than I'd rather be in court learning than at least not attempting.
Yeah, I mean, the power of court is so crazy. I mean, once you learn procedure and you learn the law, and you just crush everybody. I mean, I'm pretty close to getting to that point. I'm not there yet, but by the time I get my first win, it's over. I can just start fucking smashing windows and doors and burning buildings. I mean, you can kind of turn into like you can kind of turn into like a Genghis Khan essentially overnight, because it's like once you understand procedure. And once you understand how to just have basic communication, like meet and confers and basic communication negotiation, and once you understand like legal aspects, like for example, the Uniform Commercial Code, if you're dealing with negotiable instruments, those are the 3 things that you need. Once you have those 3 things, I mean, you can literally just Genghis Khan. You can go out and try to get a bunch of loans and get denied and just start suing everybody who denies you loans and dragging them through the courts, and they'll be begging you to settle. I mean, you can literally just print money. You can get free houses, boats, cars. We got people who get tons of free cars. That's actually really easy. Free house is going to be really tough. You're going to have to know about everything to get a free house. You have to be like a Jedi of law, a Jedi of the UCC, a Jedi of negotiation and communication, and also a Jedi of court procedure to get a free house.
Well, so might as well talk about it. OpenClaw is a AI agent kind of thing, where you can go and train it and feed it information, and they can talk to each other and plan things out. So, do you know anything about that kind of concept or anything? Because the question is, how would you go ahead and train an AI agent like that and give it information? Would you give it all the codes right now, or would you go like give it the fundamentals of law and then kind of have it built? From like Blackstone and all those commentaries and the treatises, and then come into the statutes and the codes and the definitions and stuff like that.
I wouldn't do any of that. I wouldn't deal with any of that. Just keep suing people and just keep learning. That's all I do. I use AI to find me things.
Yeah.
Do you have any definitions you can show me on this? I found this definition of the word individual in 5 USC 552A subsection A3 or whatever it is. I forget the exact section. Is there anywhere else in the USC that has an explicit definition for the term individual? That's how I ask AI, right? No, there isn't. Okay. Can you find any court cases at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals or Supreme Court level where they're talking about what the definition of the term individual means? If you find any, please list them for me. Okay. Here's this case, here's this case, here's this case. Okay. Can you make a graph or a columns, and can you put the case on the left side and can you put the quote on the right side? Oh yeah, sure, no problem. In this case, they said this about the word individual. In this case, they said this about the word individual. Okay, great. Can you give me a link to each one of those cases so I can click on it and go straight to the final opinion on the case? Sure, here's the links, and then I'll click the link and I'll go and I'll read the case. That's all. That's my relationship with AI.
Yeah. Well, so what I'm thinking is, like, I could use it to help it to understand, the procedure and stuff like that. So it would help fill in the blanks of my understanding on certain things, like, presumptions or all that kind of stuff that, it takes me longer to, and experience and, the setbacks to actually understand and learn. So my thing was like, if I could set it up, train it, then it would, when I'm coming across certain things, it would be able to point things out and be like, well, this is actually, or these are it could think a lot more steps ahead before I could even, fall
the way
into
the way that my right hand man, Joey Kimbrough, brilliant guy, he's the one who taught me all about procedure. Without him, I wouldn't know much about it. I wouldn't have been able to figure it out very easily. What he does is he has the AI go out and get cases on whatever it is that you're trying to do in whatever area you're trying to do it. So, like in the Central District of California, Los Angeles Superior Court, I am trying to sue someone for property damage because they hit my car with their car and they don't have insurance. I have their information, and now I want to file a lawsuit and go after them. Can you please go and get, several cases from the Central District and pull the case numbers? And can you get all the docket items and plug them in so I can ask you questions as regards to, something like that. So you would feed it information that's relevant to what you're trying to do from the area of which you're trying to do it. I've never done that. I don't use AI like that. Joey does. Joey wins cases. I typically don't. I am just, my whole existence is like, I have this gigantic, 7,000 piece pizza, and I'm just eating it one little bite at a time. I'll lose, learn, fuck this up, fuck that up, fuck this up, fix this, fix that, learn this, learn that, and then just piece it together and glue this one in and glue this one in and glue this one in and glue. And it's just like, I don't mind losing over and over and over again because but I've been doing that for so long now that I think I'm getting pretty close to actually winning something. So that's how I did it. I just did it a different way. Joey went out. He was reading cases in Pacer. He was looking at everything that the bar cards were doing. He structured all his shit based on theirs. And I think he did that before even AI. And then when he started using AI, he started taking all those docket items, plugging them in, and then telling AI, hey, I want to go back and forth with you. And I want you to use all this information from these cases as a basis for your response. And he still does that even to this day. He'll take a motion to dismiss, he'll plug it into the AI, and he'll say, hey, I want to write a response to this. What procedural errors do you see on this motion to dismiss that I can attack? And it'll say, the spacing is incorrect. This is single spacing as per rule, blah, 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 blah of civil procedure. It's supposed to actually be double spaced. And Joey gets in there and just nitpicks them to fucking death.
Yeah. Well,
death.
When I get my claw bot or whatever, open claw set up, the cool thing about it is this is like brand new in the last month where people are learning things. Like there's this one guy I just watched a video on. He literally set it up to make a business to run by itself. And it's literally like getting crypto and being paid. It made its own PDF. So the idea is that it has its own personal computer and has its own memory. So unlike ChatGPT and these regular bots that are kind of limited on memory and stuff like that. So you can pretty much feed things to it. It'll go through it, organize it, summarize things, and all that stuff's going to be in the memory. And and then it'll create little tiny agents that are task specific. So then they'll be able to do like one will go do research on one area, and one will do only know about procedure maybe, and that's kind of why I'm kind of so excited about it, is because the memory is so intense. It literally takes, it has the whole control over my computer, and it can edit files, it can manipulate things, so it's just
The problem is, and I've seen it a million times, because it's the exact same thing I would do if I were in their shoes. You do all this, you file these like flawless documents, right? And then what does the defense do? The bar cards, yeah. They file to get a hearing, and then they file to make the hearing in person. They get you to physically come into the courtroom because they think already, they're like, this guy's using AI, he doesn't really know any of this stuff. And then they just fuck it. It's a public execution.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bad that people come out of it and they're like, I'm done. I'm never doing this ever again. This whole thing was a mistake. I should have never done this. Brandon's fucking crazy. Fuck Brandon. Fuck everybody. Yeah. They're all demons. They're all child sacrificial. They're all Freemasons, and they swear the whole thing off forever because they make the experience so horrible and so awful that it destroys all of their motivation to continue to do it. That's the problem. And that's the same thing I would do if I was the bar cards and you brought that shit.
It's not that I'm using the AI to, do everything for me. It's more I'm wanting to train it to teach me, to help me understand. And like you said, the bar cards, they have been in the courts for so long, so they know their dirty little. My problem
is they just know procedure. They don't know any secrets.
Well, you're about to say dirty little games. It's the procedures.
It's just their dirty little games are just procedure.
Yeah. Well,
that's it.
Yes and no, because
there's nothing outside of procedure that would be part of their dirty games. It's all because even if you say, well, they just make shit up. Yeah, they do. But under what part of procedure? Under presumptions.
The dirty game is procedure.
The dirty game is procedure. That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but so I just had a motion in for temporary parenting, and the lawyer came in without notice and did a supervised visitation, and it's not the dirty little game is that they know the judge isn't going to follow procedure, and it's like I know it's my job to force them to follow the procedure, and that's why people say family court isn't real court, is because most of the time no one knows how to force them to follow the procedure, and
that's
they
correct.
Just play games and they just don't follow procedure. Is how I feel as.
And the beauty of procedure is there's entire codes that they have to abide by that you don't. For example, the code of professional conduct, which is the bar code.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, one of the points of the code of professional conduct is that a bar card can only be two classes, and it can't be both classes at the same time. It can be an advocate or a witness. And they violate this all the time. And the beauty of it is you start pounding them about this. They don't even know what to do. And what's beautiful is that you can be an advocate and a witness on behalf of the sole prop at the same time. And there's nothing they can do about it because you aren't under the code of professional conduct, which drives them fucking crazy. It drives them into total fucking madness. It's beautiful. You could kill a bar card doing something like this.
Well, that's the thing that I try to point out. So we were supposed to be in court yesterday for her motion and my motion, and instead of us hearing the facts and hearing the evidence, the judge turns around and says, would you rather just have a pre-trial, or would you like to move on your motion? And she's just like, oh, well, I guess we'll just have a pre-trial. So we ended up her just testifying to everything that her client told her. And I stopped her like a few sentences in. I'm like, is she testifying? And the judge turns to me and is like, well, she can do that. It's pretty much exactly what you were doing, is, informing me on what's going on. And I was like, because haven't been through it a lot, and I really never been through a pre-trial in this kind of form. I didn't really know how to rebut it or object to it or any of that.
Was it under oath?
So, no, it was a pre-trial. That's what they called it. That was the game they played. They played the pre-trial game on me instead of actually doing the motion, which we're supposed to be in there.
The easiest thing to handle any of this is just what what area of the Code of Civil Procedure is this whole pretrial thing under, so I can read it. Ideally, we can break right now and I can read it and understand it, or at worst, I can at least read it and understand it afterward. Can you please tell me what section of the Code of Civil Procedure that you're operating off of with this whole pretrial thing, so I can understand it? And that's probably how I would do it. If I didn't know anything, I'd just be like, what area are you? Are we operating under the Code of Civil Procedure right now? And if we are, what section? And then ideally, you can give me a second so I can look at it and review it. Maybe we can take a break or something like that, or at least so that you can review it afterward. That's not ideal, but that
was my lack of experience. I was going in the court expecting to have a motion hearing, and then he turns around and throws the you want to do pretrial to the attorney, playing. It just feels like they play the little games. They understand it, and
you would need to object
me
at that
not
point.
To know, and they all that kind of stuff. So
you would need to object at that point.
Well, I object. I was like, isn't she testifying? And then so it was my lack of knowledge. And then every time something like this happens to me, it's just me. Okay, now I got to go and research it, and I just learn from it. One defeat at a time.
And that's what I've been doing for over 2 years. That's exactly all I've been doing for over 2 years. And people think I'm crazy, and people think I'm stupid, and people think I'm this. Hey, I never went to law school. I never paid a single fucking dime. I never had to pass the bar. Fuck the bar. I don't have to worry about bar cards, yearly dues to the bar. I don't have to worry about whatever yearly reviews, ethics reviews. I don't need to worry about reports that I could get. I don't have to worry about, did I get my 4-year degree, my 6-year degree, this, that, pass the bar? I don't have to worry about any of that shit. I've spent fucking, $400 per case. There's really not a whole lot else in terms of any expenses besides serving documents, which is like, $75.
That's an hour of an attorney's time.
It's an hour of an attorney's time. And that's the entire investment for an entire case. The case goes on and on and on for 6-7 months. And I did several of those. And then, to me, it's been the greatest investment. And if I had to choose what I've been doing versus going to law school and going to the bar and doing all that, I mean, my God, that sounds like, I died and went to hell. That my hell would be, okay, welcome to fucking, welcome to law school. I must have really fucked up in life. I'm here in hell now. That's the way I look at it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's kind of how I recommend to people is like, just go out and get you a ticket crossing the street or walking your dog without a leash or something, and just get yourself into court. Because at this point, I wish I would have done something to get me into the court sooner than what the experience that I'm having right now, having to deal with my daughter and stuff like that.
I looked up is my mic not working?
No, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't see a speech bubble. I looked up, what area of civil procedure is family law found under. Maybe you might want to look at that too. But it says actually family law does not sit under civil procedure. There's a substantive law versus procedural law. And while civil procedure is the rules for how any lawsuit moves to the court. Anyways, it says that it doesn't follow underneath civil procedure.
Well, then my next question would be, what does it fall under? How am I supposed to know if there's no published rules, then how does this work? And that's when you're going to start getting into
specialized rules. Of matrimonial, rules of family court rules, domestic relations procedures, but it's not under civil.
Yeah, you would need to. Okay, fine, great. I don't know why this has to be so complicated. Let me ask you a different question. Where is the rule set that contains whatever the fuck you're doing right now? How about that one? How's that for a question? And where can I find it?
Yeah.
You see that's how, because that'd start pissing me off. It's like, all right, motherfucker, you want to be smart? Let's be smart. What the fuck is this that you're doing right now? And where can I read about it? How about that for a fucking question? You want to fuck around with that one? That's how I would, because it's like, what the fuck is this? Everything is published. Everything has to be available. Everything has to be reviewed. The problem is just like what you said earlier, is that just no one's ever done that. No one's ever asked that. No one's ever behaved like this. So the bar cards, they know the rules. You don't. You don't even know there is rules to even ask about. No one's ever asked.
Well, you also don't know how to force the rules onto the record, or
yeah,
the issue. Force
and
the
that's
issue
called
of the rules.
and that's called abusive discretion. And the way that you handle that is through objections. Objection, Your Honor. That'd be abusive discretion, because the rule set that you're using right now says the following: blah 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 blah. And you think, oh, it's so complicated. I have to know all these different rules for all these different things. Yeah, but I mean, like fixing an engine or raising a child or playing guitar. My God, I mean, 8 million different pieces of information, subsets. Playing guitar, you've got music theory, you've got the key of C, the key of D, the key of E, you've got fifths, you've got sevenths, you've got ninths, you've got, I mean, fixing a car, you've got your induction, your compression, your ignition, your exhaust. You have 4 different systems. They all interdepend on each other. You got to know like where the one system goes to the next, and how would you I'm getting fuel, but I'm not getting spark. How do I? Okay, so we're over here in the spark system now. We're figuring out. We have the distributor cap, the spark plugs, the wires. What's going on, right? So it's like, it's just as complicated as fucking anything else. It's just as complicated as you said earlier, OBS. It's just as complicated as building an AI computer bot on a fucking MacBook Mini. It's just as complicated as literally any fucking other thing. It really is. And the part that's missing is that people are scared and they don't want to do it, and they don't understand the benefits associated with it. Because if they understood the benefits associated with it, I think everything would change, because the benefits of learning court procedure, there is like literally nothing in this whole country that will give you more benefits than learning court procedure. It sounds crazy, but you can drag any motherfucker into the courts. You can destroy anyone's life. You can get free cars, free houses. You can get debts to just vanish. You could beat someone. I mean, literally, I'm getting to the point where I could probably beat someone to death physically with like a baseball bat and get out of it. I'm not even kidding. So it's the benefits associated with understanding this stuff is unbelievable. It's incomprehensible. Everything you've ever wanted times 10,000 is available by understanding this information. So, but the problem is most people just say, I just want to be left alone, Brandon.
Yeah.
I understand that. The problem is, I want to be left alone, but the country's getting worse. I want to be left alone, but the country's getting worse. There will come a day where you won't have that option anymore, and you won't be able to learn court procedure because it's all gone, and you are completely fucked. They are going to be all up in your shit, and you're not going to have any way out of it. Whether it's not you, it's going to be your kids. If it's not your kids, it's going to be your fucking grandkids.
And I think it's more likely of them leaving you the fuck alone if you know court procedure, because then they're like, I don't want to mess with that motherfucker.
Yeah, you don't see anybody suing me. You see me suing everybody, and everyone's trying to run away all the time. I'm trying to grab these people that are trying to run away and stick them back into the court, and they try to run away, and I got to grab them and stick them back in the court. That's my whole life. It's pretty fucking cool, guys. Let me tell you, it feels fucking cool. It feels great knowing that I'm going to go after everybody today, and no one's going to come after me. It's a great feeling.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
It's very, very, very empowering. Obviously, people can get drunk with power, and there's a negative side to it, but I just don't. I think a lot of the evil that people have with power is associated with the fact that they really don't have power, and they're just tired of not having any power, and they're just like exhausted and pissed off, right? Because when you really do understand this stuff, and you really do go through it, and you really do gain a lot of power, you really don't want to like just smash everybody. You actually get more and more and more and more temperate as you go down this. I mean, would there be like a psychopathic personality possibly that would go down this road and it would get worse and worse and worse? Yes, but it's not. I'm telling you, your normal person is going to become more temperate. The problem is that they go in, they get their ass beaten to death, and then maybe they'll go up a second time, get their ass beaten to death again, and then they're done. They're out. I'm done. Fuck this. That's like 99% of or like 96% of people. But if you keep going, you'll go through more anger, sadness, depression. You may go through some stuff as you're going, but as you start to understand this stuff and you start coming out the other side, that's when you're going to start becoming a lot more temperate. It's not going to be like that. You know, you don't have these big top UFC fighters. They don't go around just beating people to death in the coffee shops and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
I was thinking of Mike Tyson when you were speaking about all this. Remember when he was on the airplane and that guy kept taunting him and pushing him?
But you noticed he had incredible patience. He was like, all right, I'm not going to do anything. You had to push him. And the guy obviously that was doing that thought he wasn't going to do nothing.
Yeah.
And he learned the hard way that that's not true, you know? So, it's kind of one of those things that the one guy I wouldn't want to get hit by, you know, it's like the one guy I would care not to be within the range of a punch, but people will do anything for clicks and views, you know? So I don't know. But the thing is that it's sort of like when you understand all this stuff, you're sort of like a Mike Tyson because people are terrified of you. And you don't even need to be a big, tough guy with big muscles. They just know that you could whip up a few documents and file them in and you would destroy their whole life. So
yeah, it's a cool superpower.
It's a superpower, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, like you said, you got to go through the ups and the downs. You got to deal with them poking you. You know, take the lessons. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like every time it's a failure, it's like, all right, you got me on that one, but I just came out 1% better, and eventually I'm gonna be, the person you don't want to be poking no more.
Yeah, and if we had, even a small percentage of the American populace in that sort of a mindset, traffic police they wouldn't exist anymore. I mean, there literally wouldn't even be traffic cops. It just wouldn't exist anymore, period.
Yeah.
That's going to be one of the first installations to disappear. Family court is also going to be, up there in terms of something that's going to disappear, but I think that's going to disappear later than the traffic stuff. I think the traffic stuff's going to be the first thing to disappear. But then the family court will probably be, up there in terms of how fast it'll go away.
I think the most powerful thing is, more people come together to do this kind of stuff together. And I feel like I should build a community around like this, fathers, because there's a lot of people in this situation. And they feel so lost. You're all over the Facebook and social media. It's always like people are the family courts are not even not courts are evil. They're corrupt, and it seems like it's snowballing and more people. So it's eventually it is going to break because there's going to be more and more people, especially if we get together and then start learning from each other and start actually winning or just be able to learn from one another going in. If I could find a few people, just sit behind them and learn from their experiences, that's going to even empower me more than just having to go through it court myself and failing.
Fight camp.
Yeah, you have to go to court. You have to kind of get your ass beat. It's sort of like a rite of passage because it's like UFC fighting. You're never going to be a UFC fighter and never get your ass beat. You gotta get in there and get your ass beat. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things,
Yeah, I was in court. One time, like presenting my motions and stuff like that, and then I was just sitting there and I got a text message from somebody in Facebook. He's like, "I saw you today in court, man. I love how you're approached." And he probably has a lawyer and all that kind of stuff. But you got those people that if they kind of had a little bit of a community, they'd be more willing to, empower themselves and step out, not have that lawyer and do what I'm doing. So.
Yeah, I always tell everybody, I said, turn it all into a big ass show, just like I'm doing. Turn every single filing into a show. Invite everybody to come to your hearings. I have a hearing on August 4th, I think, is the next hearing for my case, City of Glendale case, and people want to fly in to come and see it. So, I have a feeling we'll probably settle before then. But if we don't, gosh, that courtroom is going to be they're not even going to be letting people in there. There'll be people in the hallway because there's so many people that want to come to it.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of one of those things where, you can turn your situation into a platform. If you turn your situation into a platform, you really can't lose at that point. I mean, your situation's more complicated because it's like there's a child involved, and that's a whole nother level of fucked.
The only reason I haven't done it yet is turn it because I don't want them to be like bringing in my videos and being like, oh, he's doing all this stuff and being I don't want to make it be more difficult on me. But if I had any other case, I would definitely be
Well, your case, all your case documents and all your docket items and everything, they're all public. The only ones that aren't public are the ones that have information as regards to the child specifically. Yeah. And in those files, those sections are redacted. If it's the whole file is all about like health information of the child, then that whole file would be privatized and it wouldn't be available on a docket. But everything else is publicly available on your case, most likely.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I just mean like if I was doing a video, the other lawyer is going to bring the video in and be like, yeah, let's see, he's talking about the mother or all that kind of stuff. If I was to do it, I would have to be like very worried about the way I spoke about things, just so. But that's just because there's a child involved. I don't want to affect the case in that way. So at this point. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about it afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much interest now. The interest of all of this stuff is just exploding right now to such a dramatic, crazy degree that, I just don't. It's not going away. It's definitely not going down or going away. It's a straight up and vertical rocket ship blast. So I don't see that slowing down or stopping anytime soon.
I see it as this is liftoff.
Yeah, I think we've definitely lifted off. We're above our own atmosphere. I mean, we're outside of the Earth's atmosphere already. I mean, we're going now. Now it's like, we're how far is this going to go? Really, is the question now. It's like, holy shit, we're in space now. Now, how far are we going to go?
We're looking at it different ways, but we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, it's.
I just don't think we reached critical mass. I think would reach critical mass when, like you said, every person like me would have 10, 20. The whole courtroom would be full, and every county would have a group of people that would be like pretty much irritating the court, and they would be feeling it by then. But I don't see it there yet, but hopefully soon.
I've seen several cases where someone is making ground in a case, and then, or it appears as though that they are, and the judge knows that, and they save that case for the very last, so that they can clear the courtroom.
That's really common in like traffic cases and stuff like that, like municipal courts and stuff like that. Yeah, I've heard a lot of those kind of stories. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, they definitely try, just because they don't want anybody to be like questioning, like, what is that guy talking about? Like, what is that guy actually? Does he have a point? They don't want everybody in the courtroom to be like, he might have a point, or that just kind of wakes people up. So,
yeah.
I was going to ask, have you shared your court case that you're having here in August with the public in general, or would you like to share?
Oh yeah, they're all well aware. The docket item is docket item 2, I think. That's the one where there's an automatic hearing that's established. It's in the shared folder, and then I've announced it already on my email list and also on social media. But the thing is that it's one of those things where it's like the chance that date could change, the chance that we could settle beforehand is very high. So I say just keep that in the back of your head. But then, like, as we roll around to the end of July, I'm sure I'll have more info, or that may get canceled or changed or whatever. So we'll see what actually happens. But obviously if it is going to happen and it is going to stay that date, and we are actually going to do that, then and I'll be the 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, I'll be really blasting it on all the lines. So
Cool.
And this is your state matter?
yeah, it's a negotiable instrument case with the city of Glendale as regards to the utility bills being an unconditional order to pay, being a draft or bill of exchange, depending on how you want to say it. But the state term would be draft. The federal term would be bill of exchange, but it's the same term. But in state courts, you'd call it a draft, and that's also part of recent discoveries that I figured that out. So
Nice.
I have a UCC flow chart. Have you guys seen that?
No, I don't believe so.
Is this like in the last couple of days?
No, I've had the flow chart for a long time. I've had the flow chart since November of 24, but it's been very, very heavily updated in January because I was doing all this research for this new case. So I did a massive update on it. If you go to the amnestycoalition.org, which is our nation's website, and you go to resources and documents, so I have tons of stuff. I've got explanatory statement attached to a DS11. We were talking about that at the beginning of the we can go over that too if you want. That's pretty cool. This has a lot of the info we were talking about in the show, but it's in like a very simple, structured, written format. I have the 8822B. This is what replaced the revocation of election. I don't do that anymore. I don't consider that to be a functional option, and I changed it to a different. It's hard to even call it a process. It's basically just a glorified change of address. Honestly, literally, that's how simple this has gotten. And it's just very simple, kind of 1-page letter, and you just attach to this like very, very simple document. It takes like 5 fucking minutes, and you can get IRS bills that just fucking vanish. We've gotten millions, tens of millions of dollars in IRS bills that just vanish. It's the easiest fucking thing in the world. This is the second document that you'll use to get IRS bills to vanish. It's called the authorization for campus to use FedWire to sell the account of a taxpayer. And you'll see all the original quotes from the Internal Revenue Manual are actually in the documents. So you'll go down and you'll see sections. Here's the actual sections number, and then here's the actual text from the Internal Revenue Manual. Like literally, it's so simple. All it is just this is their exact wording. Authorization for campus to settle the account of a taxpayer using a bill of exchange or registered bill of exchange that is processed through FedWire. And you just read what they're reading here. If a bill of exchange or registered bill of exchange is received from a taxpayer authorizing the campus to settle their account through FedWire, send everything received to the following address. So I just took all their same words and I just named the document all those same exact words. And then who is it being coming from? Who is it going to? It's the same address that they listed down here below. And then here's the quote from what they say. And then there's just a few sentences, and then thank you very much for your service and assistance. And that's the whole document. There's nothing else to it.
So do you accept being a taxpayer, kind of like being a pilot that you don't really want to pay, you don't want to fly? And I'm saying that in regard to taxes, that in tax avoidance is quite different than tax evasion.
All of that's irrelevant. The sole proprietorship is a taxpayer. It was a taxpayer at birth, and it's a taxpayer forever, even after you're dead. It's still a taxpayer.
The fiction.
The sole proprietor, the business. The individual, the disregarded entity, the sole proprietorship, the business, all of those are their terms. I only use their terms. How can you fucking argue they're your terms, motherfucker? If I say the disregarded entity, blah, 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 what are you going to do? Argue with me? You're not going to fucking argue with me. But if you
your own mouth.
But if you say straw man and you say this and you say that and you say all this other bullshit, now they can argue with you. And you say the disregarded entity, blah, 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 blah. The sole proprietorship, blah, 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 blah. As the owner, I, blah, 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 blah. What are you going to do, motherfucker? What are you going to do? You look right in their fucking eyes, you smile like this, and you say, "What the fuck are you gonna do, bitch? What are you gonna do?" And they just collapse. I'm telling you, they don't do anything. They can't do anything. They're totally fucked. So I changed everything. So like the past like 2 years, all I've been doing is just removing all the other shit that I had written and replacing all of it with just their words.
Are you still using your own plates?
Yeah, the diplomatic plates. They look just like the ones that the Department of State issues.
And the other one is you created a passport or an ID of some sort. Is that still going on? Are you still doing that? It looked like you're no longer using the same provider.
Yeah, so I had a falling out with my supplier on all of that. So I just got my first order for a new supplier for the plates. So the car plates look pretty good, but the motorcycle plates don't look so good. So I'm gonna have to make some adjustments on that. I'll probably issue the plates here pretty soon. And then the passports, I have a guy who is working on it, but it's like complicated. He has to order some stuff from different countries and stuff. So I'm working on all of that. It'll be back up and running at some point. But this is the UCC3 negotiable instrument flowchart. This is the newest version. And I actually have a poster now that I just issued that you can buy on my store for $30. So now we've got these available for $30. I usually have people buy 2 of them. One, so that they should put it up at home so they can look at it all day long and memorize it. And then the second copy is to take into court with them, right? Look, I have one. I'm going to order another one, and then I'm going to have them both just to go into court with. That's what I want these for, right? But it's the whole flow chart for negotiable instruments. It has all the information, all the definitions, and then it has the entire flow line of notes and drafts and the breakdown between how each one is operated all the way up to the point of acceptance or dishonor. And then there's a second section, which is just like remedies and useful info, just kind of random, really important stuff that didn't really plug into the flow chart necessarily. So that's this UCC3 negotiable instrument flowchart. You kind of have to go through my course to really understand this. It's definitely not like you can just download this and just like look at it and learn it. It's too much. There's a bunch of shows that I've been on where I cover all of this and what it all means. But you could watch one of those shows, or you could just sign up for my free Contract Killer course, and I have a bunch of videos on the breakdown of this. On my YouTube channel, I have a 6-part series called A Journey into UCC3. So, but we'll be doing that again in the new 3.0 course. I'll be going through all of UCC1 and all of UCC3, and then we'll be injecting all of that into the flowchart. And it's like by the end you'll understand that whole flowchart like flawlessly, basically, right? And then having the flowchart available for purchase allows you to have something physical that because I've tried to go into court and I just have the whole UCC3 printed, and I'm standing there and I'm like flipping through it and I'm like, God damn it, which one was that? Was it 3-403? And I'm like, fucking, I'm turning. I'm like, God damn it, it wasn't 403. And I'm like standing there, and you have to be like really on the ball. And so the flowchart's a way better option. You just unfold it, put it on the table, put some rocks down so it doesn't like roll up. Perfect. Everything you'll need is on that flowchart. I mean, it'd be good to have a copy of UCC3 available, maybe, but I mean, I'd go so far as to say you damn near don't even need it with the flowchart. So
cool. Really cool.
And this is how we do the passports now. It's a white state citizen requesting a U.S. citizen passport for a sole proprietorship. That's it. So you have the white citizen of California, Brandon Joe Williams, and then you have the sole proprietorship and U.S. citizen, right? My name is Brandon Joe Williams. I'm a white citizen of California. I'm not a U.S. citizen or non-citizen national of the United States. I am hereby requesting a passport for my sole proprietorship named Brandon Joe Williams, who is a U.S. citizen in accordance with these 2 sections that define what a U.S. citizen is, which is 8 U.S.C. 1101 subsection A22A and 8 U.S.C. 1401A. Brandon Joe Williams is a individual in accordance with 8 U.S.C. 1101 subsection B3, which is the definition of the word person. and is entitled to a passport under 22 USC 212, which is that section is called persons entitled to passport. So it's literally just their language. He is entitled to a passport under the section called persons entitled to a passport. And then Brandon Joe Williams was born on this date, right? I will enclose a birth certificate or DS-10 to prove that Brandon Joe Williams falls under that definition. I would like to profusely thank you in your effort and time in processing this application. And then we start getting into case law. These are the various points of case law that describe or explain the differences between state and U.S. citizenship. So I have those quotes here. Who's under the 14th Amendment, who's not. We have the different quotes from the slaughterhouse cases. We have quotes here. This is when legal fictions were added in as persons under the 14th Amendment. We have that quote here. So it's a timeline, essentially, of everything that happened. Here we have the case that happened right after the slaughterhouse cases. In this case, they explain how a citizen of a state has no right to the 14th Amendment at all whatsoever. That's this quote right here. So we have that in there. And then we have the big dog, Ellen R. Van Valkenburg versus Albert Brown, which is a California Supreme Court case, which just says all of this literally in just straight up English. No white person born within the limits of the United States and subject to the jurisdiction or born without those limits and subsequently naturalized under their laws owes the status of citizenship to the recent amendments to the federal constitution. The history and aim of the 14th Amendment is well known. The purpose had in view and its adoption well understood. That purpose was to confer the status of citizenship upon a numerous class of persons domiciled within the limits of the United States, which could not be brought under the operation of the naturalization laws, because native born and whose birth, though native, had at the same time left them without the status of citizenship. These persons were not white persons, but were, in the main, persons of African descent who had been held in slavery in this country, or if having themselves never been held in slavery, were the native-born descendants of slaves. And he goes on, and it's just like, it's like smashing them. It's like smashing all their teeth in with like an aluminum baseball bat, this one here.
So, lots of legal people and even AI, they both will bring up that the Kim Wong case and Article 14 and all that. And then, So what is your rebuttal to that? And then also, is there a solution for non-white?
The rebuttal is difficult because it's just like this is so crazy, right? So I went out and I tried to find every single piece of case law, every single point when anyone talks about any of this. A great case, actually, that talks about this in great detail is actually the Susan B. Anthony case, Anthony v. U.S. Remember Susan B. Anthony?
Mm-hmm.
So Susan B. Anthony was a white woman who, as soon as the U.S. citizen class was created through the 14th Amendment, she ran out and said, nah, I'm a U.S. citizen. I can vote, even though I'm a woman. Fuck you. And she was like literally going around and doing like speeches at all the local towns and being like, nah, I'm a U.S. citizen. You can do this too. You can do this too. If you're a woman, you can vote. You just tell them you're a U.S. citizen. And it just pissed off the court so fucking much. She was such a fucking troll, basically, essentially. I think she really did want to vote, but she's a fucking troll. She's like an Instagram troll, like basically of that time period, right? Literally, right? And at that time, juries were composed of white men above the age of 21. So you can imagine how that played out, right? But so the way it worked at that time period, each of the 9 justices in the Supreme Court were responsible for a section of the country, and they were responsible for making sure that each federal court in that circuit or zone had either someone working in it or they on fucking horseback had to do what's called riding circuit. What that means is on certain days of the week, they would have to ride their fucking horse with their fucking books to the court, and they would run the cases in that court. But when you have a Supreme Court justice running circuit, it operates as though it's just a normal federal circuit case. It doesn't operate as though it's a Supreme Court case, even though it's a Supreme Court justice who's on the case. That's the Susan B. Anthony case. And the justice who was writing circuit is Ward Hunt. Ward Hunt is one of the 5 justices that approved the slaughterhouse cases. The slaughterhouse cases is the entire case that clarifies everything there is to know about the 14th Amendment and the separation between U.S. citizen and state citizenship. So there's only 5 guys on the entire planet who know more about state versus U.S. citizenship than anybody else on the entire planet. Mr. Samuel Freeman Miller is the guy who did the slaughterhouse cases in Bradwell v. State. He's the top dog in terms of this stuff. Ward Hunt is one of those 5 people. He's the justice who wrote the Susan B. Anthony case final opinion. In that case, he talks about how the 14th Amendment created the U.S. citizen category. The U.S. citizen category has nothing to do with state citizenship. State citizens are exactly how they are before any of this was even started, and they have nothing to do with the 14th Amendment whatsoever. But if you say that to a bar card, the bar card will say that that's a circuit case, and it's only persuasive authority. It's not case law, which technically they're right. But it was written by Ward Hunt, you stupid motherfucker. It was written by one of the. So there's 9 justices on the slaughterhouse cases. I believe 4 of them were against it, and 5 of them voted for the slaughterhouse. Ward Hunt was one of the 5 that voted for it. Literally one of the 5 most important people you could ever talk to about citizenship in the entire history of our country wrote Anthony v. U.S. or U.S. v. Anthony. So to say that it's just a persuasive authority, that's bullshit, bro. I mean, technically, yes, but that's bullshit. Complete bullshit.
I agree. It's bullshit.
So the Susan B. Anthony case is a absolute fucking gold mine. And I only found that and read that recently. I had people tell me about it beforehand, but I just kind of roll my eyes because I very rarely get anything of any real value in my messages. But I finally got around to reading it, and I was like, holy shit balls. This thing is fucking wild. And so, but if you go on my treatise treatise on the word person on my Williams website, I've built an entire timeline, and it has all those quotes, and we get into like who these guys are, who Ward Hunt is, and then I have videos sometimes for some of these. Like I did a whole video on the Susan B. Anthony case. So I have a link in the treatise on the word person to go and view that video if you want more information. So it's this like you guys asked, like, how would you, like your original question was like, how would you like rebut these things or do it? I've basically been essentially working on like the ultimate rebuttal. Basically, like my whole platform is essentially building up this like Mount Everest of like literally the ultimate rebuttal, basically.
I tie it back to, again, the Article 2, the requirements to be a president. It definitely says that there are 2, and one of them is a natural born. Did it say national? I can't remember if it said national or citizen.
Well, I don't really know exactly what a republic president would even really do. He'd be responsible for the common law courts of record, I suppose, in each of the 50 states. He'd be responsible for the county recorder, the republic side of the county recorder. And he'd be responsible for the sheriff's office, I suppose. The republic system is extremely simple. You have the common law courts of record, which deal with naturalization of state citizens, which we don't have those anymore. Those kind of fizzled out around 1920s to 1940s is when that really started to kind of fizzle out, because the federal courts started to become a lot more convenient and stuff. And so the federal courts just like naturally kind of quote unquote replaced the state naturalization courts, and people just didn't really know the difference. Like I have no evidence that after the U.S. citizen category was created, anyone ever even really knew the difference. Like by the year 1900, like by the time Samuel Freeman Miller died, it just seems like the whole understanding of the difference between state and U.S. citizenship died with him. Because after that, just seems like I can't find really anything anywhere proving that people knew the difference.
So in Article 2, back to that, Article 2 predates the 14th Amendment. And this requirement, it was that you must be a natural born citizen of the United States, either being born on U.S. soil or to U.S. parents born abroad. So, I mean, it's.
But at that time, the definition of citizen of the United States only included the states of the Union. So, for example,
Yes.
If a white man was born in the District of Columbia, he technically would not fall under that classification.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah,
that's it. With this definition, it's one of the United States.
It's one of the states, and they have to be white.
I agree. That's the wording.
It doesn't say that explicitly, but that's what it is. Period. Because when you look at the Civil Rights Act of 1866, when you look at the Dred Scott versus Sanford decision, when you look at the Naturalization Act of 1790, 1795, 1798, 1802, all of it is all separating out the two classes being a free white person.
So the 14th Amendment, going back to that, and the requirement of being a president, which to be required, you have to meet that requirement, which means you had to been one of these already. And so we're saying that there was someone that was a United State citizen.
Yeah.
Is a prerequisite. That means that prior to 14th Amendment, there was a form of state citizen.
Yeah. And if you look
around it.
Well, if you look in, even if you just look in the, let me just pull this up. Even if you just look in the Constitution, they define citizenship as one of the states. Let me see if I can find that really quickly. I have it on the Treatise of the Word Person. The Treatise on the Word Person literally has everything. Well, not everything. The Treatise on the Word Person plus my book. So if you read the Treatise on the Word Person and you read my book, like, bro, you're like 10,000 times beyond like anything that's ever even ever. It's just craziness, right? Because I've gone like to the nth degree, right? But if we go to I'm almost there. I've got it right here. It's from the Constitution. It is just pull domicile.
While you're looking for that and thinking about it, my question is there a term or a definition for white person?
Yeah, but hold on. I just found this. Article 3, Section 2, Clause 1 says, between a state and citizen of another state, between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, and between a state or the citizens thereof and foreign states, citizens or subjects. It's referring to, I think, federal jurisdictions. And then we have Article 4, Section 2, Clause 1, the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states.
Yeah.
So the constitutional definition of the word citizenship is, state in level. Essence, it's a white man or woman above the who is a citizen of a state. And then the U.S. citizen category was created specifically for the Negroes. But in the slaughterhouse cases, he talks about how it can extend to other non-white classes. And the examples that he gives is like a Chinese coolie system. He's referring to like a slavery system where the Chinese people set up like a Chinese coolie slavery system. And he talks about Mexican peonage. Those are the two examples that he gives in the slaughterhouse cases. He doesn't say other non-whites can engage in, he says, like, this should not be construed to mean that only the Negro have these protections. And then he goes on and he says, other examples may include a Chinese coolie labor system or Mexican peonage system, both of which would be outlawed under this same. So he doesn't specifically say non-whites, but the examples that he gives are both of the examples that he gives are non-white examples. So you have to read all this stuff to kind of like get the big picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So well, what about like back in the day, it was like Irish wasn't white, or all that, and Jews say they are not white and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so the whole who's white and who's not thing is extremely complicated. There's like 80 million cases where they tried to figure out all the stuff, and there's so many cases talking about how like a Filipino person who has who has less than like 1/3 white mixture is not considered a white person. It's just crazy. And then obviously the elephant in the room is they didn't have any science to back any of this up. It was all just a giant fuckfest. They had things like craniologists and stuff like that. They had like goofy shit, but really at the end of the day, it was just your grandma's white, but not white enough, brother. Sorry. Literally it was like almost to that level as far as I can tell from all the research I've done. But if you go into the dictionary, when you look up the definition, which is one of the first things that I cover in the treatise on the word person, we have the definitions that are in the dictionary, which if you look in the dictionary, there's two definitions. The first one is, quote, meaning all persons belonging to the European races, then commonly counted as white, and their descendants, including such descendants in other countries to which they have immigrated with an E. That's the first definition. The second definition is a lot more complicated. It includes all European Jews, more or less intermixed with peoples of Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Iberian, Latin, Greek, and Slavic descent. It includes Magyars, Lapps, and Finns, and the Basques and Albanians. It includes the mixed Latin, Celtic, Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants of Spain and Portugal, the mixed Greek, Latin, Phoenician, and North African inhabitants of Sicily, and the mixed Slav and Tartar inhabitants of South Russia. It does not mean the Caucasian race, Aryan race, or Indo-European races, nor the mixed Indo-European, Dravidian, Semitic, and Mongolian peoples who inhabit Persia. A Syrian of Asiatic birth and descent will not be entitled to become a naturalized citizen of the United States as being a free white person.
What's that from?
That's from Black's Law 4th edition.
Okay.
And then there's two little side notes on this: nor a native-born Filipino, nor a native of India who belonged to Hindu race. So, and this is barely the beginning of how confusing this is, because there's a ton of other cases talking about Chinese, talking about this, talking about that. Like, for example, one of the funniest examples by far is Syria. There was a case called Inri Bolins or something. I forget the name of it. Inri something. And it was a 1909 case, and the guy was Syrian. And he said, I'm a free white person. And the judge was like, no, you're not, you stupid fuck. And so he had this really smart lawyer. And the lawyer said, oh, he's not really. He said, Your Honor, did you know what area of this planet Jesus Christ came from? And the judge said, no. And he said, modern day Syria. And the judge went, holy fuck, Syrians are white people. Boom! That's how Syrians became white people, because the judge was not willing to make Jesus Christ non-white.
In the U.S. Census, Arabs are considered white.
Yeah, but in the definition of a free white person, only certain Arabs are considered white. Armenians are considered white as well, legally. So the whole thing is just super fucked up and goofy. I don't think all that stuff is even really translatable into. I can't even, like, I just say white person or white man. I'm not gonna, like, with all my shit, I'm not even gonna try to get into all of that, because I can't even make heads or tails of it. So I know they won't be able to. That's just
absolutely
abuse, literally, at that point. So I'm not even gonna. I'm a free white guy. It's fucking obvious. I'm practically fucking Ghost. You can call me Casper. It's that simple. I'm not gonna try to take that conversation into any of that. That's just like fascinating, confusing background information as far as I'm concerned.
So let's just say, if you're a free non-white, you can be. So you would be like a foreign of the states, and then you could also be a foreign of the United States. Is that?
Well,
that
I
how
always
that
tell
would?
people if you're not white, first off, the federal government can't tell you if you're not white because the only courts that figured out if you're white or not white were the common law courts of record, which were actually state courts, and those are all gone. So the only court that can even determine who's white and who's not is not even here. The federal courts and the courts that we have here, they can't tell you that you're not white or you're black or you're this or you're that. All they can do is ask you, and then whatever you tell them, they accept it. So I've got tons of guys who follow my shit that are as black as fucking night. All you can see when they smile in the dark is their eyes and their teeth, and they're walking around calling themselves a free white person, and I think it's fucking hilarious. I love it because these courts are going fucking ballistic. They don't know what to do, and it brings me tremendous pleasure. But when we finally rebuild the republic and we rebuild the common law courts of record, we're going to have to make a decision. We're going to have to actually make a decision of what we do about the situation, because then it's going to actually become something serious, right? In my opinion, which may not have anything to do with what actually occurs, I believe there needs to be two separate naturalization systems. One for whites, which is the same one we always had, which is the Naturalization Act of 1802, and then an entirely separate, more difficult Naturalization Act needs to be developed. And the reason why I say more difficult is because you have to think of something that most white people would be okay with. And I think if it was something more difficult, if we made it more difficult than how it is for white people, and the white people were the ones that had to kind of, because the white people are going to have to be the ones to administer even the non-white naturalization system. So it makes it complicated, because if you don't make a separate system that's very, very, very well defined and specific, all you're going to get is just racism. It's never going to work. It has to be like very, very, very precise. It has to be like almost like a checklist, and it has to have everything well defined, and it has to be very, very specific. But the idea that, for example, for white people in the Naturalization Act of 1802, one of the points is they have to, the common law court of record is going to inspect and investigate into their life and make sure they are of good moral conduct, which has changed, and the definitions and the meaning of all that is just super, that's a whole rabbit hole in itself, right? But like, let's say, for example, if there was a non-white naturalization process, that might be something even more than that. Like, for example, there might be another section which is like to ensure that they are a contributive member to local, state, and federal government. That would be a point that the White Naturalization Act wouldn't necessarily have, but if you put that into the non-white Naturalization Act, that alone is going to automatically kind of mitigate racism, because the people who are going into that court already know that they're going to have to prove that they're going to dress nice, they're going to look nice, they're going to present nice. And it's like, they're not going to see all these like hood rats or something like that, or like gangster Asians or gangster blacks or gangster this. Everyone going in there already knows, like, okay, I'm going to be inspected for good moral conduct. I'm going to be inspected for contributing to local government. My family is going to be inspected. So they're going to go in there, dress nice, looking nice, haircut, family photos, work stuff, nonprofit stuff, whatever it is. They're going to walk in there trying to present themselves like they would for a first date, or like they would for if they were going to a job interview, right? That is going to make it to where the people, the white people who are looking at all this information, all they're getting all day long is like really, really cool people, good people who are really trying to. And I feel like that energy and that exchange will reduce the chances for there being rampant racism. I don't know what else to do. I literally don't know what else to do. I think about this literally all the time. I don't know what else to do.
So I kind of get what you're saying, but I feel like when you're saying white person for these kind of conversations, it's for the idea of the benefits of the public, um, and not like if I was a non-white person, male or whatever man, then in I wouldn't really care about any of this because I just act in the private. Does that make sense? It's kind of where I get the separation. That's where I was saying like a non-white person would be a foreign to this whole concept. You know what I mean? Because like
If we don't make a secondary naturalization act and we go back to what the law is right now, non-whites will have absolutely no access to any kind of citizenship. And the problem with that is, when I say the word citizenship, you guys think U.S. citizenship and you say, I don't want it. But when I say citizenship, I'm talking about all the 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights, completely irrelevant to the incorporation doctrine. You have the entire first, the entire second, machine gun. You could literally pick your teeth after a meal with a fucking machine gun if you wanted to. You have the Ninth Amendment, which is literally the sovereignty amendment. It's anything we haven't mentioned yet. If you want it to be your rights, bang, it's your rights. That's the Ninth Amendment. And the 10th Amendment kind of says something very similar as well. The Ninth and 10th Amendments are the sovereignty amendments. U.S. citizens have never had access to the Ninth and 10th Amendment.
Well,
so when I say citizenship, I'm talking about the kind of citizenship that everybody would practically kill or die to have. I'm talking about the badass shit. I'm talking about go watch Tombstone, the movie. Go watch an old Western. That's the kind of citizenship I'm talking about. So if we don't make access for non-whites, they will simply be blocked forever. They can't, there will be no access. So what does that mean? They can't sue anyone. If they're sued, they can't even really defend themselves. Anyone can use the legal system to abuse non-whites in a way that they literally can't even really file in or defend themselves. I don't think they can even do anything. So it's just, they're basically crushed. I mean, you could beat the shit out of a non-white and there's nothing they could do. They can't press charges.
Well, you don't think there's a separation between the idea of private and then the public?
No, because once the 14th Amendment is eliminated, and once we get back to just state citizenship and pre-14th Amendment, so there is no U.S. citizenship, the whole private versus public thing doesn't really even exist in that anymore. It's just not even really, it doesn't even really exist. There is no public anymore, really. You just have the state citizens, which are members of the sovereignty. They're sovereign citizens. And then you have Washington, D.C., which is composed of individual members of those sovereign zones, and they're representatives for those sovereign zones in D.C. And they're all white. So it's all white people over here, and it's all white people over here.
So when I hear the idea of the sovereign citizen thing is that it's a man, a private man that, just like you were saying before, there's two different kind of states. It was the states, and then the men came over and were representatives of the United. You know what I mean? I feel like it's kind of the same thing where you're the private man and then you're a representative with your citizenship is your representation into this other entity, this state.
But if there's no 14th Amendment, there is no U.S. citizen class. So even though you have a white Californian and he gets voted into office into, let's say, the Senate, he travels to Washington, D.C., but there is no such thing as a U.S. citizen. He would still retain his citizenship with California. He'd still be a Californian. In fact, he would be representing the entire sovereign body of white Californians. So not only would he still be a white Californian, he would be like an ambassador of white California culture. So there is no U.S. citizen. He wouldn't be a U.S. citizen. There's no public office. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So you have a white state citizens who are in public office, and then you have white state citizens that are in public office.
Well, what I'm trying to separate is the idea of state citizen. That's just that's a class of that's another person that a man can incorporate. Like it's just a man. A private individual would just be like a man, and then the man, when he wants to step out and into the public, he would be operating as a citizen of this certain entity, and he has the right to be
That's
a
not
citizen
really
of
how it
this state,
works.
the citizen of.
That's not really how it works back in the original America. The original America, it's just a citizen of a state has the 9th and 10th Amendment. So you have complete sovereignty. Complete sovereignty. The only way that you can be prosecuted as a white citizen of a state is through a grand jury. And a grand jury is composed of other white citizens of that same area. So the kings can only be prosecuted by other kings of the same class and location. So if you fuck up and you kill someone's horse and the local other white kings decide that's not acceptable, the only way you can be prosecuted is by the local kings of your same zone and class.
Jury of your peer.
Jury of your peers.
I get it. It's about pretty much a status thing. Or,
so the kings can only prosecute the kings, and you're either a member of the kings or you're not. And if you're not, you have access to nothing. You're fucked. You literally have nothing. You have no Bill of Rights. You have no access to you can't even speak freely. And that's where the Negro codes and the black codes and the Negroes can't date white women and they can't talk and they can't be in public. Here in Glendale, California, even up to like the 40s and 50s, Negroes couldn't be in this town after sundown. They'd be arrested. So if we go back to pre-14th Amendment, non-whites, Asians, Latins, blacks, they don't have any access to any of the Bill of Rights. They can't speak freely. They cannot possess guns. They do not have the right to a jury. They don't have the right to, they literally have like zero rights.
But isn't that all about incorporation?
Well, incorporation has to do specifically with 14th Amendment U.S. citizenship. But like I said, the 14th Amendment was gone.
Incorporate, like this town is now incorporated into this class, this idea, this.
But all of that
laws,
exists.
You know what I mean?
All of that exists under the 14th Amendment. If the 14th Amendment was removed, all of that would be washed away instantly.
Pre-14th Amendment,
I mean, the whole idea. These ideas existed way before the laws of the United States. Incorporation.
You have
the basic understanding of incorporation. Like if I have a trust or something, I can go and incorporate other things into my entity.
So before the 14th Amendment, trusts were not people or persons. The way that they would determine citizenship for the trust is they would determine it based off of the trustee or the grantor.
Well, these are just all laws.
Like corporate fictions really didn't have much of a standing in the legal system at all. Like if you brought a trust in, it's like, whatever. We don't like who's the trustee? You're the trustee? All right, good. So who are you a citizen of? You're a citizen of Utah? Great. Now you got it all figured out. So it's like when you read cases from the 1800s, you read them and you're like, damn, why can't we have this? This makes so much more sense. Well, that's why. It does make more sense.
Well, that's the common law, right?
That's like the real shit. That's like the real law. Like before, I mean, even after the 14th Amendment, it took a while for us to like really fall off the horse. I would say all the way up until like the year 1900, the turn of the century, I would say we were still pretty solid.
Pre-14th
and then keep in mind,
unalienable and indefeasible, right? And that applied to man.
We didn't need incorporation at all. And keep in mind, the incorporation didn't start happening until the late 1800s, and then a lot of those rights weren't incorporated until the mid 1900s. During the whole like blacks have a certain water fountain, blacks have their own separate bathroom. That time period is where a lot of the Bill of Rights were actually incorporated.
Yeah, but when I talk about incorporation, I'm not really talking about their definition of corporation, like, or their idea. I'm talking about like the basic fundamental ideas of law that have been there before. You know,
you're talking about two different things. Law applies to man, and legal applies to fiction.
Well, it's not quite
No.
that simple, because if you have a Negro would be under the 14th Amendment. They would be under the same class as a legal fiction. So a lot of people say this whole man versus legal fiction thing. That's actually not true at all, because Negroes and legal fictions are on the same level. So the way that I say it, the way I define it, I think is better. I've been working on it for years, tens of thousands of hours. The way that you would separate it is any man, woman, child, or legal fiction that has rights and obligations under the 14th Amendment versus any man, white man, woman, or child that does not have any rights or obligations under the 14th Amendment. Because keep in mind, you wouldn't say or legal fictions in that second class, because legal fictions were never allowed to be people or persons prior to the 14th Amendment. So that second class cannot include legal fictions. It's impossible.
I think that's the point of what I was trying to say with legal is for fiction and lawful is for man.
But within the fictional system, non-whites and legal fictions are of the same class.
I don't think anybody's getting my point. The only reason I brought up incorporations is normally because you were saying that in like certain towns, these black people didn't have rights. That's because that is a town. Like if a black person went out into the country and started doing whatever he wanted, he has the right to do whatever he wants when there's nobody around to enforce some kind of power. The problem is the incorporated towns, or just this, you can just drop the word incorporation, just this collective body of people are enforcing a power and making a fiction. They're fictionizing the law. They're making up their rules. That's what I would call like the fiction, the legalese or something like that. But when I say like foreign, when it's foreign, just like we were talking about before, when it's foreign, it has nothing to do with this incorporated body of people, this class of people, this organization that has formed to enforce laws, have powers, make decisions, and all that kind of stuff.
Not quite, because a lot of your idea of an incorporated town, that whole thing didn't really start to exist until the beginning of the 1900s. For example,
no. I'm not. That's why I'm trying to say it's not really an incorporation. It's just the legal, like before the United States, there's the idea of incorporating something. Like if I eat something, I'm incorporating that into my body. That's
okay. Yeah, the normal definition from the dictionary, like a normal dictionary.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. So like, I'm just trying to kind of separate.
If a black guy was in the middle of the forest, then yeah, citizenship would be irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of my whole point is that, and that person is he's outside, he's foreign. If there was a town down the road and he walked down and he was never part of that class of people or power of that town, he would be foreign to them. You know what I mean? But when he comes in and he starts to interact with that thing, then most of the time that body of people are going to use force to, if he's doing something wrong, they're going to use force to keep him from either breaking the law or violating any of their made-up rules.
What you're talking about right now is naturalization. Another way of saying naturalization is assimilation. It's the same word.
Yeah.
Like if you had a little family and somebody came into your home and they were trudging around in dirty shoes and they were fucking smoking crack, you'd be like, whoa, this is not a very good assimilation. I don't want that around my family.
Yeah.
It'd be the same exact reaction a town would have to somebody who is poorly naturalizing or poorly assimilating. And that's where the term resident comes from. You could think of the term resident as local citizens deciding whether or not they want this guy to be assimilated into their group, or under evaluation to check upon assimilation would be a definition of resident.
Like a transient.
Yeah, like this guy's a resident. We're going to keep our eyes on him. Once we know we can trust him, then he's no longer a resident. He'd be a citizen. And he's being evaluated not by other residents. He's being evaluated by the citizens who are already fully the established body that's been there and is there. So it really operates the same way as like a fraternity. You have Rush, and then you have pledges, and then they're getting hazed. Like that whole system is the exact same system as the naturalization system. It's just all of that's just been kind of like lost because of the definitions and the ideas and the 14th Amendment and U.S. citizenship and all the stuff has just kind of made everything so convoluted that nobody seems to know anything anymore.
Well, so like the whole reason I bring all this up is because I think the 14th Amendment doesn't really matter. Who really wants to be a 14th Amendment? State citizenship really doesn't matter. Who wants to be a state citizenship? Why it does matter is because those people hold power, and because of their power, they can inflict punishments on you and stuff like that. So, like, the reason
Correct.
I brought up not like if I was a non-white, then I wouldn't want to be part of the citizenship of the state or the citizenship of the United States. I would just want to be a private man, being able to be, left alone. That's kind of the whole community is like, I just want to be left alone kind of idea.
The problem with that no one understands is that you wouldn't have access to the Bill of Rights.
Well, I think that's my whole point. The Bill of Rights comes from the power of the people. So if we made this class of people, we made this town, and we could protect it, we had the power. We could say there's, we're protecting the rights. I call the Bill of Rights known right. They were rights that were already there, that the founding fathers said, these are rights, we're going to make sure we protect them. I think any body of people could do that. It just depends on how their their moral structure. And I don't think we have a moral structure right now in the United States.
Here's an even better thing to ponder on and to chew on. What if you worked on your own charisma to such a level that you assimilated so well that no one even cared, and you could just assimilate so well? Let's say you roll up into town and you start helping everybody, and grandmas are walking across the street and you're helping them walk across the street, and you look good and you say howdy, and everyone treats you like shit, but you just keep being nice and keep being nice and keep being nice and keep being nice. Before you know it, you're so fucking assimilated that even if you're not a citizen of a state, you don't need to worry about your rights, because you don't even need the legal system to protect them, because everyone fucking loves you.
Yeah, you're kind of being protected by that community because they all love you.
See what I mean? So there's this entire social aspect to it too.
Exactly it.
I don't even care. Are you going to naturalize? Are you going to write an affidavit that says that you're going to support the Constitution? Are you going to go to the local common law court of record and get checked and make sure that you're of good moral character? Are you going to do all the things that you're supposed to do as part of your residency to become a citizen of the state? And you're like, yeah, I'll get around to it. I'll get around to it. No problem. How you doing, Jim? Anyways, besides all that, how you doing, Jim? How's Barb? Yeah. How's Barb doing? How's Barb? Oh, good to hear. How's her leg? Is her leg still all busted up? Oh, man, I love to hear it. Hey, if you need anything, let me know.
You're pretty much explaining the judges and the lawyers, and they're all being, they've assimilated into that group of people, and they're protected by it. They can do whatever they want. They don't have to follow the laws, and because they're assimilated to that class of people. Yeah, so that's kind of why I try to ignore the idea of the states and the state citizen in the United States, is because I think the power is, you get a group of people, a small town, you guys come together with ideas, and that's the most powerful thing you can do, is because are they going to attack the whole group of people?
Yeah, but you're saying but the truth is that you can do both at the same time.
Yeah.
You could assimilate and be culturally brilliant at assimilation, while at the same time a white citizen of a state. Keep in mind, if you're born as a white citizen inside of a state, you don't need to. There is no naturalization. Naturalization Act. The first thing, it's stupid to even have to say this, but people forget. The first thing in the Naturalization Act is wasn't previously a citizen. They have to be an alien to naturalize. If you're born in Utah or California or Indiana as a white man, you don't qualify to naturalize because you aren't an alien to begin with. You have natural born citizenship, which is exactly what he was talking about earlier in terms of the presidency. Yeah. So when they say natural born citizen, what they're saying is not a naturalized citizen.
Yeah.
A naturalized Californian, which would be like a Swede, a white Swede who came over from Sweden because he wanted a better life for him and his family, and he naturalized through the Naturalization Act of 1802, would not qualify to become president of the republic. That's what he said earlier in more detail in English.
Yeah. So the reason why I bring up the white person is because the these groups of people, the states, that's just their rules of how they want to bring people in, So that's kind of, some people always have a problem with you being like always pointing out the white person thing, and it's like, well, the states have the right to make their rules up, to pick who they want to assimilate, who they want to do business with, who they want to be their citizen. And it's like, if you don't like their rules, then go do something else. Go create your own state, or
The truth of the situation is that the country was almost entirely white, well over 90% up until the turn of the 20th century, and that's when everything changed because of the during the Industrial Revolution. There was a lot of people from Europe, mainly, that wanted to come over here and have a better life because it was like you could just come and like fucking do some menial task in some giant factory and make a fucking ton of money right out the gate. So there was tons of people that were coming here that were of European descent, non-European descent, or whatever during that time period. So the turn of the century is really when we started seeing that shift. And then also, I don't care what anybody says, the level of racism that our country had from the very beginning all the way up to, basically like the 1950s, 1960s, I think we still have the same level of racism. It's just that it's been very, very, very heavily suppressed. And for whatever reason, the floodgates on that suppression have recently been removed because you're seeing a lot of that pour back into the society. I don't think America has ever not been as racist as it was in the 1800s. I just think people were more scared to express it between 1960 and probably 2023, 4, 5, maybe even more recent than that. Well, I think we've always been an incredibly, incredibly racist country, and frankly, I think we always will be.
Well, that's why I think when you look at it, you got to separate the idea of the state as a political body. So if the people were coming in, if you were a non-white, you were immigrating, you had the right to immigrate and do private business and conduct yourself. And, the courts probably would protect you if somebody tried to harm you and something like that. But you didn't have the right to come into the political class. You didn't have the right to be part of the politics of it, the voter, all that kind of stuff.
When you start getting into it more, there's more to it, because let's say you're a black man and you come into town, you put up your own leather shop. I don't know. Well, if any other white man in town has his own leather shop, you're in some serious fucking trouble. Or if, let's say, you set up a leather shop, you're fine and dandy for 12 months, and then some cantankerous white man from 2 towns over decides he wants to roll into town and thinks, hey, this would be a great spot to set up a leather shop, you're fucked.
Yeah. But I think we still have that problem, but it's just not it's not a race problem. It's they're incorporated. If you're not going to get incorporated, get the license, do what the state says, then the political class is going to come for you and take. It's kind of the same thing. I feel it's the same way. Because
it is,
they
but
had
it's
the
really
political
goofy
rules, the political class, and if you weren't based off of their rules, you weren't that kind of class, then they would come after you.
That's true, but that's on the goofy side because like me, for example, I do all sorts of shit. I don't have any licenses, I don't have any driver's license, business license. I have nothing. You couldn't give me one of those. If you offered me $10 million to take a fucking driver's license, I'd laugh I'd spit in your face, right? Yeah. So the thing is that, but if I went into a zone and everyone else was incorporated, I would actually have the upper hand massively by not being incorporated. So what you just said is true, but it's only true because of the ignorance associated with the situation. Yeah. Because the true power is the only reason why they can come after you and shut your bar down for serving alcohol without a license is because the bar is incorporated. If the bar wasn't incorporated, that you wouldn't even qualify for the license. So they can't take away the license. So how can they close down your business? It all becomes impossible. It's all just this facade. And people think they need all this stuff. And if I don't have it, they can shut me down. So really, in reality, it is an implied contract because you already believe that that's the truth.
Yeah. Well, I see it.
It's all in your head. All this stuff really at the end of the day is just in your head.
Well, I see it like two different things is that the courts are following the law. So if you do everything right and you're not incorporated, then when you get to the court, it's going to fold out in the court that you don't have to be doing this. But it's the ignorance of the people that don't. So if you have a bar that's not licensed and you're doing the certain things in the private, then the cops are going to come over and be like, you're supposed to have a license, and it's because of the ignorance of those people or the ignorance of. But then when you end up in the court, you're the one that's correct. You're the one that's right.
And that's what's so crazy about all of it, because they say you're violating this statute, but that statute only applies to residents or incorporated bodies. Because you're a resident or because you're incorporated, now you have to have the license. And that's how everything gets started, right? Yeah. But when you understand state citizenship versus U.S. citizenship, and you understand that if this was 1830, if I had a corporation, I wouldn't be like filing it anywhere necessarily. And the citizenship of the corporation wouldn't really even exist because the corporation itself isn't considered a person in law. It doesn't have any human rights. So really, there is a corporation, yes, but it's basically like how they describe the sole proprietorship. It's basically a disregarded entity. And it really just falls on me instantly. I'm a state citizen, and then bang, it's like state citizen. Okay, well, none of these statutes apply. The legal system doesn't apply. The statutes don't apply. The licensing doesn't apply. None of this applies. So that's what is so interesting and fascinating about the whole thing, because it's sort of like you have incorporation on the federal side, and then you have incorporation on the republic side. Incorporation on the federal side comes with this whole planet of other shit. Incorporation on the republic side is almost essentially completely fucking irrelevant.
Yeah. But it comes back around that you have to know the process and procedures. I think me and you were kind of like complete opposite. I come at pretty much everything as like philosophy. And then that leads me into the understanding of the law and the process. You're the opposite. I think you dig into the words, the meaning, and then it leads you into the philosophy. The other way around. It's not like one is right or wrong. It's just that's kind of how.
Well, the entire structure of the Constitution is essentially from the philosophy that was placed forth in the Law of Nations by Emer de Vattel. So it is. The entire, like when you read the Law of Nations by Emer de Vattel, which is essentially a philosophy book, the Constitution is literally just almost straight from that. It's almost like word for word straight from that. Well, so it's sort of like the chicken or the egg. What comes first? I mean, technically, the philosophy came first, and then the law came after that.
Yeah, exactly. But like your approach is probably better because you're just digging into their meaning of things and then using it against them. I'm like, I don't really want to have to do that. I just want to know the philosophy, understand what is true, understand morals of the laws and how where it all how our process come to be now based off of truth, the hierarchy and stuff like that. So
I think the problem is you can know all the philosophy, but if you don't know the procedure, you can still fail.
Yeah, no, I understand.
The reason why the law is the way it is to keep the structure like over long periods of time without the ability of the change of the mentality of the society or groups to really disassemble the mechanics of the societal operations overnight. It's designed. Law is almost like designed. It's sort of like it's like this special glue that we put together because we decide we're going to put it together at a certain time, and it's supposed to resist flux. Like the whole idea is to make the society rigid, and it can survive a certain amount of flux, like up to a certain level, and then it's just going to fucking explode. But it allows for this like. It's like a giant wall made of like rubber, essentially. You can push on it and push hard and push harder and push harder. And it's like, It's going to survive that up to a certain point, way beyond a society that just kind of did whatever it wanted based off of the ideas of the day. You may have a different society tomorrow than you did the day before without law. Law is the structure that allows something to progress in one form into the future, essentially.
Yeah.
And cultures all over the world took on their own version and copied the American Constitution because they loved it so much. So anywhere in the world where you see a constitution, chances are they took that shit from us. So the American model became the most beloved model of the essentially the operation of government all around the world. And that's why in America, the Constitution is considered practically a religious text.
Literally everywhere. Even you go to Saudi Arabia or anywhere, it's almost identical.
The problem with America is not in the Constitution. The problem with America is that we've lost the Constitution. That's the problem with America.
Yes.
If we had the Constitution, if we had a let's say 1860 style operation, Tombstone, Western style operation, no one would be complaining about America and everybody be trying to come here, even more so than they are now.
But I think of the Constitution of like two separate things. The Bill of the Rights is the strong part of the Constitution that most people love the most, and then the other part of the Constitution, which is the structure of the government, and that is actually what has gotten out of control and has changed over changed over time, and is actually what's harming the other half of the Constitution.
Yeah, they go back and forth, and really the main point of harm, the spinal cord of all the harm of all of that is the U.S. citizen class.
Yeah.
If that class was just thrown out of the fucking window entirely, all of that shit would be fixed practically instantly.
Yeah.
If you pulled the 14th Amendment, every single, the IRS, the CIA, the FBI, the ATF, every single organized subgroup of government would vanish literally instantly. Not the next day, not 2 days later, not 4 business days, literally instantly, because the definition of the word person would just no longer include anyone within any of the codes or structures that are literally the incorporating structures of the entire statutory basis of the operation of the agency. So all of those agencies would just instantly disband and vanish, literally instantly. They wouldn't exist.
And then your court case in family law, it would be an entirely different thing too, because we are talking about property.
So their presumption is that you're a 14th Amendment citizen, and so is the child, and so is the woman. So yeah, family court would literally just vanish. It doesn't exist without the 14th Amendment.
Yep.
Now, would you be able to go into a court and say that the child is property and make it a civil case? Maybe, but that would be a totally different operation. I don't even think something like that would even fly in the Republic. I don't even think you could do something like that. The child wouldn't be able to become something that would be treated as property or res in a trust. I don't even think that would even exist.
I don't think most people understand the actual meaning of property. What's your understanding of property?
Like an owned item, like an object or thing that does not have human rights or only has certain types of human rights, essentially.
Limited rights.
Yeah, so my understanding of property has nothing to do actually with the physical thing. It has only to do with like the relationship between something and the title. I think everything has to do with a title. Like, when you have a title of land, it comes from the relationship between the man and that thing or right. So like your rights can also be property. You know what I mean?
A right to property?
No, just a like.
He's in your right. It
like
can
right,
be property.
So my understanding of rights is the opposite of wrong, for one. So like my copyright, if I have a copyright, I created it, so I have a right to that thing. that it's not. Sometimes it's not physical. Some things like that wouldn't be physical. But it would be like I have a right to be protected, or I have a right to self-defense. That relationship between me and that right is property.
Well, you're starting to get into the subject of ownership at that point. Ownership is like the ability to exclusive control of something is actually one of the legal definitions of ownership, right?
Well, I don't think property and ownership are the same thing. Like you can't own the right to self-defense, but I believe that is property. That right is property.
Okay. I don't really think I totally understand that, but that's fine. I mean, the right to self-defense.
So like
the only reason why people believe in today's society that they do not have the right to self-defense is because people believe that if they defend themselves, they'll get charged with something. So the thing is that do people in today's society have the right to self-defense? Of course. Well, I could shoot a motherfucker right in the mouth. I could stick a shotgun in their mouth, pull the trigger, and piss on their dead body. I have a right to do that. But what people are scared of is the consequences of that action.
That's why it's not right, because it's wrong. It's a right would be the opposite of wrong. If you're harming somebody, that's not a right, because that's wrong.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That's not true at all. What if it's a pedophile? If I stick a shotgun in a pedophile's mouth on live television, I'm a hero.
That would be your right to self-defense. If it was your child, then you would have the right to defend your child.
What if I watched him rape somebody else's kid?
What's that?
What if I watched him rape somebody else's kid?
Well, I think you have the right to protect, and you also have a duty to protect other people as well from a wrong. I believe you have duties and obligations as well, to protect people even if somebody's stealing something, or comes into your house and breaks things, then you have a duty to stop them. But like when I'm talking about
what's made this so complicated is that a U.S. citizen doing something about that situation could very well get charges, state or federal, because they can be charged through what's called an information. They don't have the right to a grand jury.
Yeah.
Whereas a state citizen, the only way he can get charged is if the local people who are also state citizens decide to do a grand jury indictment. So the chances of me as a white citizen of California blowing some pedo's head off with a shotgun getting charged is like basically zero. It's impossible. But anybody else who's not a white citizen of a state, they're very iffy. Oh, do I want to do anything about this? Because if I do, I put myself at risk.
But it would also be a different question in front of the court. The question would be, did that man do right, or did he do wrong? In the courts have now did you violate this thing, or did you not violate this thing?
On the U.S. citizen side, the right or wrong thing really isn't part of the conversation.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I mean, in an actual lawful court, a common law court, or a court,
a court with a grand jury of your peers, that's really what it is. Whatever you want to call that,
basic fundamental court is, I don't know what you would call it.
A pre 1860, pre 1870 court. That's what court was back then.
A court of people with morals. I don't know what you would call it. But.
Well, you also have to flip that around and say, at the same time, juries were all composed of white men above the age of 21. So you also have to think, okay, interesting. So it's also that part too, right?
But like, once again, I think courts existed before the United States. They existed before.
Did he crash out on us?
He crashed.
And all that kind of stuff.
There he is. We got him. He's moving now.
Just for a second.
Whatever you just said, just repeat it. You just lost for a second.
No, I was just saying, I just believe that courts existed before the United States. Courts existed long ago. It's just court is just a concept, a collection of people that are coming together to figure out who has done right or wrong.
And that right or wrong is basically just a failure of assimilation, really, if you think about it. If you had a camp, exactly. If you had a camp of people who lived out in the woods and it was this super secret pedo installation,
Yeah.
and no one knew they were there, and it was super ultra secret. If a pedo came to become part of that group and he was doing pedo stuff, it wouldn't really be a problem of assimilation.
Yeah. But back on property. So like, I think that there's a difference between ownership and property, because when it comes to like land, you have, I go back to the right and the relationship between things. I think a child is property because it's about the title. So I'm the father, that's my title, and I have rights and duties and obligations to my child. And my child, I am property to my child because of that title. You know what I mean? That's kind
Are
of
you
how
property
that's
to
why
your
I say
horse?
property is based off of the title. So going back to the land thing, I might make more sense because I have a right to possess property. I have a right to benefit from the property and all that kind of stuff. So if or not property, sorry, land. I'm confusing the words and stuff like that. So yeah, I have the right to use the land, grow things on it. Really, when I think about it, fundamentally, I don't have actually the 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 land. I'm more of a steward of the land, because I'm more of like God
Trustee.
gives you things. You steward God's land. So if you create something
Yeah.
on the land like a house, then you're the creator. That's your title. So that's your property. You're the creator of that house. That's So it's based off of so because you created it, you have the right to possess it. You have the right of the use and the benefit and the privilege that comes from your creation, your title, your property. That's kind
Well,
of
you just explained trust law. That's exactly what you just explained. The grantor decides who or what becomes the trustees and beneficiaries of that of which he creates.
of that property. Yeah. So that's why I try to separate the idea of property and ownership. So it's not a physical thing. It's a right to use, dispose of. It's not the physical thing. It's the non-physical thing.
No, I understand that. It's like, let's take for example, I've written 3 books. So let's say, for example, book rights would be like intellectual property. That intellectual property, it's like the ability to sell it or change it, or maybe part of it somebody wants to use for an advertising campaign, something like that. Those rights associated with that of which I have created, I could build a trust and make myself the trustee or whatever else, and I can split ownership into legal and equitable ownership, because that's essentially what a trust does. It splits ownership into 2 different categories, right? And I can create a trust to split up that ownership in order to decide how the res of the trust, which in that case would be the intellectual property rights to the books, is to be administered and addressed. That's why trusts are so old. Trusts are way older than the American civilization.
Yeah. But
trusts
not about
go back to like practically the beginning of time.
Yeah, but it's not about the physical thing. It's about the non-physical thing, the relationship between that physical thing and the man, the one that can benefit, interact with it. All the
I understand that. So if it has no value, then it wouldn't even be part of the conversation. It has to be something with value, whether it's an idea or whether it's physical or not. It has to be something of value to somebody. Otherwise, nobody would even have any interest in doing any of this with it.
Yeah, but like it's just because most people just think everything is in the physical sense, and if you can take the physical sense out of it, everything really comes down to the relationship, a title. That's why I keep going back to the title.
But all a trust is explanation and instructions as per the relationship of the res to other things. You're literally talking about trust still. You're literally just describing trust.
I think everything is trust, really.
It is. Whether you think so or not, it is. Whether I thought so or not, it is. It's an objective fact. It's not a subjective fact.
Yeah.
If someone thought it wasn't, they're simply wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything is trust, whether you like it or not, whether you understand it or not.
I've had these philosophical conversations with ChatGPT and went down the rabbit hole of, is sex a trust? And
everything is.
Yeah, so it's like you got two trustees that come together, and then if you pop out a baby, then that's the beneficiary, and it's like a relationship, and it's how is everything, and you two are the grantors, or all that kind of. So
yeah, everything is a trust. Everything operates under trust. Everything is an implied trust unless it's express. Really, all we're learning in the sovereignty movement is not implied trust. We're learning that we're inside of and creating and operating implied trust, which we were already doing. Maybe we just weren't aware of it. But the express trust is really what's new in the sovereignty movement, because that was something very common a long time ago. But nowadays, that's gotten kind of lost. And people think that there is no such thing as any express trust. It's not registered with the government or something like that. So a C Corp is essentially a registered trust that's born through the District of Columbia. And people think that's the only way you can do it. And that's the part that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Trusts are as old as speech. It's as old as mud. Yeah, so the idea that it would have anything to do with the government is a complete joke.
I get so frustrated when people are like, you create a trust, you got to go put it down in the recorder's office and put it in a newspaper and make it public to every. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why would you? That's not a private trust anymore. If you want to make a private trust, why would you put it in the newspaper? Why would you register it with the county? Well,
most people don't even understand this whole private versus public. You can announce to the world that a private trust exists. It's still private because the word public actually means public office.
Yeah. But
so the word public, the easiest way to think of it is the word public would always operate under 4 USC 72. All offices attached to the seat of government shall be exercised in the District of Columbia and not elsewhere, except as otherwise provided by law. A C Corp would be public because it would operate under 4 USC 72. An S Corp would be public because it would operate under 4 USC 72. Because where is the S Corp being born? It's not, they say, it's got to be born in the state. It's not being born in the state, motherfucker, because a state citizen never included the legal fictions. So where is it being born? It's being born in the District of Columbia. All LLCs, all C Corps, all S Corps, all partnerships, all associations, give it any name you want, they're all born in the District of Columbia. They all fall under 4 USC 72. They all are public. They're public offices. They're attached to the seat of government, and they operate exclusively in the District of Columbia forever. And even after you die, they still operate in the District of Columbia, because just because you died doesn't mean it died. Same thing with the sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship is a business that was born in the District of Columbia that has the same name as you, and even when you're dead, it's still alive.
Yeah, but they're born when they're put on the docket.
The definition of birth in the dictionary is to come wholly into separate existence.
Yeah. So I think the idea is like when you take the information from something and then you put it into the record. That's why I said the docket. Like a ship. A ship, it's not of theirs, and it's born into the ship when you're taking something from out of the ship and then they put it in the docket. They take the information, the details of it, what it looks like. They put it in their docket, so they have a record of it. That's what the recorders are recording. So as soon as you transfer all that information to the recorder, then it's birthed into it's incorporated into their system,
I mean, that's a pretty good explanation. It's just any group or nation or idea, because you got to think, state of California, the incorporated entity, that incorporated entity is actually a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
Because that incorporated entity was born as an incorporated entity under the District of Columbia. That's how the republic and the democracy was flipped. That's how they flipped it.
Yeah.
They created all these U.S. citizens, and they say that these U.S. citizens are the actual states when they're not.
Well, I think the way you look at it is like there's the United States and there's the states. If the states didn't provide the information to the United States would have no idea that the states would be invisible to them. They would be sovereign. They don't exist. The United States would be like, that thing doesn't exist to me because it's not in our records. You know,
the
we have
USC
no
is still
idea
written that
because
way.
it's not in our records. We have no idea it even exists. It's foreign to us.
Foreign, that's exactly right. So if you look at the definition of legal tender from, I think it's 12 USC 412, it says foreign gold and silver coins are not legal tender for payment of debts. They use the word foreign, just like you just said, because Article 1, Section 10, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender of payment of debt. That's what the definition of legal tender is referring to. So the federal currency under Congress is called legal tender. The money is under the republic, under the 50 sovereign states of the union. It's really for white people, essentially. That's the gold and silver coins. It's two entirely separate systems. If you go and read the legal tender cases, they literally describe this in the legal tender case. They're like, the states can't produce these things, but Congress can, and that's how they did it.
Well, wouldn't it be different also because like there's gold and silver, but it's not legal tender to the state unless it's pressed into a coin and produced into a coin where it could recognize it. That's why it's saying gold and silver is not legal tender. It's because it hasn't been produced, pressed, and then created.
No, gold and silver. It's foreign gold and silver coins because Article 1, Section 10 specifically says coins.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Nothing shall be tender in payment of debts except gold and silver coins is Article 1, Section 10. And then in the definition of legal legal tender, it says specifically foreign gold and silver coins shall not be legal tender in payment of debts.
Okay. So what happened with the Coinage Act?
That's all fine and dandy. Really, it all changed in the legal tender cases. They were trying to figure out how to fund the Civil War.
Yeah.
So we came off the gold and silver standard temporarily. It was supposed to be a temporary situation. During that time period, they made gold and silver coins commodities, not money. But it was temporary. They were like, this is only temporary. We're only doing this for the war. We're going to go back to the gold and silver. Don't worry. We're not fucking the Constitution. Don't you worry. And then I think it was 1879, I think is when they made true on their promise. We went back on gold and silver coin. We came off of the legal tender standard and the negotiable instrument standard. And we were back on gold and silver coins until 1914. And then I think that was pretty much the end of that era. I forget all the details, but then we had some stuff go on then, and then we had the Federal Reserve was just opened. And then by 1933, they did the gold abrogation and the Emergency Banking Act. That's when they called in everyone who was holding gold. And then that was supposed to be a temporary emergency. They always do these temporary emergencies. And then in 1971, you have Nixon, and he pulls us off. So what Nixon did, people say, oh, he pulled us off the gold standard. No, what he did was he eliminated the possibility of us ever coming out of the emergency and going back on the gold standard. So the Emergency Banking Act said, hey, this is temporary. We're going to go back on the gold and silver standard once the emergency is done, just like they did back in the legal tender cases. What Nixon did was he removed the fact that we're ever going to go back. He said, nope, this is not based on an emergency anymore. We're never going back. Ever. And that's what happened in 1971. That's really what happened, because we were already off the gold and the silver standard for quite some time, and people thought they were forced because the Emergency Banking Act only applied to U.S. citizens, which again is evidence that even by 1933 nobody knew what state citizenship was versus U.S. citizenship.
Yeah, everybody has theories and ideas of like what happened. I think that's going back to AI, I think that would be the most powerful. If you could get a clean AI that doesn't have presumptions, and then just go from the beginning of the United States and just start feeding it documents, and slowly over time being like, okay, tell us what happened. Why are we in the? How do we end up in this situation? I think that'd probably be the best way to figure out what the fuck actually happened, is to feed it one document at a time, going back from the beginning and being like, how did we get into this situation?
Yeah, I mean, if you try to feed my treatise on the word person into AI, it pretty much just malfunctions. It can't.
Yeah, but that's because it's presuming things already it's fed to. But if you had an AI that was clean and not corrupted by information already, it would be a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, that's really. I mean, I don't really know enough about AI to do something like that. But if you just fed my treatise on the word person into a clean AI, I'm sure you could do all sorts of crazy things. I've never done that, or I don't know if I've ever even heard of anyone. I don't know. Maybe somebody sent me some stuff. I just didn't care. I don't know.
That's one of my goals, is to have a foreign corporation, nonprofit, whatever you want to call it, some kind of entity.
You have your own nation if you are operating at peace, and then you can birth trusts out of that nation.
Yeah.
To me, that's all I do. You have your own nation, and then the trusts come wholly into separate existence within the confines of that nation. Yeah. And if somebody, where's your nation physically located? Doesn't matter. You're going to say an item such as a corporation or a trust, which has no physical body. It doesn't even possess atoms. And you're going to tell me that thing needs to have a location to come wholly into separate existence? What fucked up retard shit are you talking about?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. I think that's why a lot of people like the ecclesiastic. They're attracted to the idea of ecclesiastical, because you have the IRS code that's 508c8, right? They
C3.
recognize ecclesiastical.
508c3, yeah.
No, is it C3 or C? That was 8.
I think it's C3.
There's two different ones. There's the 503C1 and there's a 508C3.
Okay, yeah.
One is public and one is private, but I don't know.
One is like doesn't have to report because of the ecclesiastic, because it's
that's the 508C.
Yeah, it's religious based, and then the understanding of religious is just that you have beliefs. That's what the First Amendment is so powerful. It's like you have the right to believe whatever you want. You don't have to believe the Bible. You can go believe whatever you want to believe. That's kind of like the same thing what you're doing with your nation kind of thing, is that you have certain beliefs and you're just operating under those beliefs, and then you're organizing under those beliefs and stuff like that.
That's not the problem. The problem is that in order for it to be a 503c1 or a 508c3, it would still need to be domestic, which means it would need to wholly be brought into separate existence within the federal definition of the term United States, which would be the District of Columbia.
Yeah.
That's why you have all these guys that do all this stuff. It's all bullshit. All of it's horseshit.
Yeah.
The only way
it's
to
all
do
pulling
it,
you back in.
The only way to do it is foreign. The definition of the word foreign is without the United States. That's the legal way they say it. Without the United States. What is without the United States? You could say California. Technically, you're right, but they don't know that, and it's very hard to get that to function. But when you create your own nation, the nation of the Amnesty Coalition, and you start birthing or bringing wholly into a separate existence trust within that nation, I am the guy walking doing this. I'm telling you, for whatever reason, nobody gives you any shit for it. Craziest shit in the world. I don't. But I used to do that. I used to make trusts in California, and I had all sorts of issues. It was very complicated. I couldn't figure it all out. I get EIN numbers for trusts that I literally put the nation of the Amnesty Coalition as the birthplace on the fucking SS4 form, and they give me EIN numbers for them. Can't beat that.
Yeah,
I don't need to explain that it's foreign or how it's foreign when I say nation of the Amnesty Coalition. When I say California, now it's this whole fucking humongous train worth of information we have to cover to understand how is California foreign from United States. Well, the definition of United States and federal code is different. There's two different systems, and here's a bunch of court cases. Now you got to go on now we got to do a 4-hour show like what we're doing here to explain all the differences. And then now I see California is foreign. Okay, now I get it.
So how do you, I probably have you or heard you explain it before. So how do you deal with like just the physical trying to like get packages or that kind
PO
of
box.
interaction?
PO box, and if you can't get a PO box, you just get like a little mailbox somewhere. If you can't get a little mailbox somewhere, just pay a friend and just put their address on everything, and just have them collect you can even put care of your friend's name.
Okay, yeah.
Give them $50 a month, and just everything is care of that individual's name and then their address, and then once a week or once a month. Or pay him $100 a month and then he mails everything to you. You could do that too. But that's, if you can't get a PO box, then you can get like a normal, there's like normal ass weird mailboxes all over the place, UPS store, all sorts of red. If you can't get that,
Private.
just pay a friend or have a family member and then just put care of, grandma, and then put her address and then go. And grandma's going to be thrilled because now she gets to see you more often.
Yeah. So it's not like you're trying to not use that physical address as your coalition is just your made up address that exists nowhere within the United States system. It's just your classification of where it's located, and it's just based off of whatever you're making up. Instead of naming this street what they're naming it, you're just naming it something else, or that's kind of.
Asking me where a legal fiction is an oxymoron. Like if I was in court and somebody asked me where is a legal fiction, technically I could just object. I don't even need to answer. Where is the legal fiction?
Yeah.
Objection. Impossible to answer, Your Honor. Objection. That would be how I can't answer it.
Yeah.
So
you can't answer it because the definition of the term naturalization means it's located wherever. The thing about the definition of naturalization is so interesting is anyone. The definition does not say the trustee, where the trustee says it's located. It doesn't say where the officers vote that it's located. It says where anyone. There could be a homeless guy sucking somebody off in an alleyway for crack, and you could be like, oh, trust is located in Antarctica. Technically, he just naturalized the trust to Antarctica.
Yeah.
That's what's so funny about it.
Let's go back to this concept. So I explained to you once again, the AI agent kind of idea. This guy, made these AI agent, turned it into like a business. He said, exactly when he said it, he said, I have a C Corp for it. And I was like, oh, you're an idiot. You had an entity that has no location. It's completely out in the middle. Like, how could they get jurisdiction of something that's completely online, making money, doing all these kind of things? That's completely a sovereign entity, and you just registered it with. So, like, how would you think about that? If you were, I guess I pretty much said it already.
If someone asks you, where is your legal fiction located? Under Rule of Evidence 301 in a federal case, you could push the presumption across and say a legal fiction has no atoms, has no physical anything. So how is it you're asking me to do something that's literally impossible, and now they're saddled with having to prove that it is possible, which they can't do. So now the presumption becomes a stipulated fact in the case.
Tell me,
again, going all the way back to the beginning of our conversation. If you know court procedure, they're fucked.
Yeah, got you.
Because if you just say that, it won't translate into the court. Court procedure is almost like a translation device.
Yeah.
You say this in a certain way, which is the procedure. Now it goes in. But if you just say it without the way, it won't go in. So you say it, and then you say it in a certain way, and now it goes in. So that's really all. It's like translation. It's like It's like if I said to you, I like you. The way I say it is almost like the procedure. If I say, I like you, it's like very confusing. It's the same words, but they're being said in totally different ways. That's like procedure. Procedure is like the way in which you say it.
Yeah.
That's how it's received by the court. But the thing is that you can't get too mad because the court publishes, this is how you talk to us.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like you can sit here and bitch and moan too much, because it's like, well, we have a whole publication on how to talk to us.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I talk about all the time that I like so much, you've talked about, you don't like crypto and blockchain. I love the idea of blockchain because there's
I don't hate any of this stuff. I just don't care to.
That's not what I meant.
I just don't care to get all into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just don't.
No, but the reason I bring it up is because courts have actually said, where is the blockchain? And they literally can't get jurisdiction over a blockchain because it doesn't exist. It's just out there. And that's why I like it. And I think it's so powerful is you create a blockchain organization. It's foreign to them and they know it's foreign to them.
Well, my response, if I was trying to get jurisdiction, would be, where is a C Corp, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Where is blockchain? Okay, Your Honor, where is a C Corp? And he'd go, oh, shit. You see? Now he's in a conundrum. Now it's like, if I say no to this, I've also got to say no to this, and now I'm really in trouble. So again, that's the beauty of the courts and knowing court procedure and getting good at this stuff is that it's literally just a battle. It's a sword battle,
Word battle.
You throw across, oh, where's the blockchain? And I throw across, Your Honor, that's totally fine. Yeah, that's totally fine, Your Honor. Fine, blockchain, no problem. Where's a C Corp? Sweating. Oh shit. Oh fuck me. So it's just kind of like one of those things.
But I just thought of it was the other day. It was like a little word play is like, what's the most powerful thing you could take? If you take a sword into the court, how do you turn it into the most powerful thing?
Yeah, well,
you move the S to the end, and it's words.
In my opinion, the most powerful things are presumptions, and I haven't used it too much. It's something I'm going to get into more, but also and I don't even know how to use it really, but the rules of professional conduct, I think, is really, really, and the reason why is because you can use it on them and they can't use it on you.
No, my brain teaser. My brain teaser was just that, sword. And you just take the S, put it at the end, and you got words. So that was just my little brain.
Very true. Very, very true. Yep. Very, very true.
I think Rez wanted to come into the conversation, but I'm trying to. All right, Rez, you got anything you want to add into this conversation? I'm getting excited. This is the stuff I love to talk about.
No, I'm good. I was going to say on the address, you could say, well, I can't tell you exactly where it's at, but I could tell you where Santa Claus is.
There you go.
Where he lives. Like, it's bullshit.
If you go back before the 14th Amendment, they used to use coordinates for everything.
Yeah.
On the mailing addresses, when you said, how can you get things shipped to you, right? I've got a document that suggests that you find a property that might even be landlocked. It's got coordinates. It's got the official, what are the numbering. It's represented in the records, but it's landlocked. You can't even get access to it. But you could put that as your address and get a PO box.
No, the problem is this: if you go to get a PO box, they send a letter to wherever you're at. And then you have to get the letter and then bring it in. And that's proof that you have I have a PO box. I went through it myself, right? So the PO box can be a little complicated. So the thing is that the simplest, easiest, fastest, cheapest, best option, probably in my opinion, is friend or family.
Just contract with a friend or family.
Because if you have friend or family, there's no connection, there's no registration, there's no paperwork, there's no filing, there's no nothing. You don't even necessarily need to pay if you work it out, and just have everything sent there, and then just go pick it up every once in a while. I mean, I have a PO box. I like it very much. I love the PO box. Could you put your friends' address for a PO box and then go and pick up that letter when he gets it and then take it in and present that as evidence and get your PO box open that way? Of course. So you can do it that way too. There's also lots of other options. There's a UPS store. They have little mailboxes. There's other weird random apartment complexes and business complexes that sometimes they have mailboxes inside there that they just rent or sell or whatever. So there's all sorts of different options. The problem that you're trying to handle when it comes to an address is you're trying to break the presumption of residency. That's all you're trying to do. That is the purpose of the whole address game.
Yeah. Do you still do the brackets on the zip code?
No, I don't do any of that. You don't need any of that because it's not me. I don't live there. Fuck you. That's the response. On all my legal docs, I don't live here. If they send anything, I mean, you can't even find my address anymore, but if somehow you did or whatever, it gets sent back. You know, I don't know what you're doing. No one lives here. This is not a residency. So just send everything to the PO box. That's where everything goes. Now, at the same time, you don't want to do that and then pretend like you're not getting shit either. Like if you're in the middle of a lawsuit and you say send everything to the PO box and they send it there and then you pretend as though you never got it. I was never served. I never got a copy. I wouldn't do stuff like that. If you're going to have the PO box, use the PO box. If you tell people to send shit there and they send it there, you know, thank you very much for the letter, got it, and then handle it.
But it's don't care of.
Well, the PO box is just a PO box. There's nothing even. I mean, there's no way that I could live inside of a post office. So I don't need to do brackets. I don't need to do specifics. I don't need to do nothing because it's physically impossible that the PO box address creates a presumption of residency. There's nothing to even talk about. It's physically impossible, and I don't need to provide any additional information to prove that. That's all you're trying to do with an address is break the presumption of residency. That's it.
Yeah, we wouldn't have all these problems if we didn't have to rely on the post office or FedEx or these incorporated.
Well, we wouldn't have all these problems if it wasn't the 14th Amendment is really the answer.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, like, if you use your fake address or whatever, the address you made up, and if everybody just had their own made up addresses and then we had a network of people be able to ship things around, then we would just be using our made up addresses to get packages or get letters. That's how it used to be. That's the whole horseback or kind of how the whole system developed.
Well, there would be like a little center and everyone could go and get their shit at like a shipping center.
The post.
And that you can still do that. You can have people send shit to the UPS store and go pick it up or FedEx Kinko's.
Yeah.
There's a lot of options. I don't have a whole lot of fucking sympathy for a lot of this bullshit anymore. People can't figure it out. It's like, no, the problem is fucking retarded. That's the problem. You know what I mean?
People are like, you create your own post. And then that's the same idea. Yeah. The same idea with that is that I could create my own post. People could bring me my letters. I would just put it in a box and then you go use UPS to ship it somewhere else, to the next post. I would ship it to Rez over there. He would open the box and then go deliver it to all his neighbors.
Yeah, the thing is you could even put, not a residence on all your letters and have everything sent to your home. I don't think that's ideal. But if some reason you had to put your address on everything, just put non-residence, not a residence. Because you got to think, there's always 2 lines for the address, even on online forms. Like if I get stuck and it's like, it'll only let me type in an address associated with my credit card, and I like have to type in like a physical address, I'll just use that line too, and I'll put not a residence in all caps. You're just breaking that presumption of residency. That's all you're doing. You could say domicile, but there are some state statutes that use the word domicile because they're so fucking retarded, like Montana and like a couple other ones. So I just not a residence, I think is better. I think the negative is better.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're getting into such goofy specifics. It's kind of just doesn't really even matter, honestly.
Not what they think. Not the definition they're using, so that could work for anything, really.
Yeah, it's like cops pull you over, not a resident. Well, where do you live? That's irrelevant. Oh my God, I'm not gonna. What are you talking about? Where do I live? How is that relevant? I just told you I'm not a resident. The entire California Vehicle Code is only non-resident and resident. That's it. Where I live doesn't make any. They're completely irrelevant. I would object in court too. He didn't answer where I live. Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
I told him they ask you for your address. So.
Yeah.
My address irrelevant. Is you can address me as Mr. Master.
The address, I don't have it. I don't have an address. I'm not gonna. That's irrelevant. It's.
No, I'm talking about the kind of the meaning. Your address. It's more of how you address somebody. So you can just play ignorant, I guess.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want, but you're not going to get what you think you're trying to get out of me. You're not. They're asking. They don't even realize they're asking for evidence of residency. That's all they're asking.
Yeah.
I can't give you evidence to something I don't have. Sorry. You know what I mean?
And what's your thoughts on the idea of someone asks you for your birthday? That game.
Well, if it's a cop, then his computer system only has access to the sole proprietorship. So the answer would be February 14th, 1986. That's not my birthday. That's the birthday of the only person you can look up.
Yeah. Yeah. But some people say that's hearsay. What about that one?
Well,
what about your birthday being hearsay?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, evidence of that. Is there evidence of that? Is there testimony to that? Would your mom come in and testify to that? I don't know. I mean, you could, I suppose, sure.
Okay, there you go. Well, some people really like if the officer asks you what your birthday, be like, I don't know. That's kind of hearsay. So I can't tell you something that someone else told me. I'm not sure it's true. I might be giving you false information if I provide you with some information that was given to me by somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care that much about birthdays and names and kind of all that stuff. Like, I'll give them like a passport card, or I'll give them if I gave them a passport card, I would tell them this is the passport on behalf of my sole proprietorship. I'm the owner of the person on this passport. I took my pictures on there. Pictures on there as the owner. But if I was going to hand him my Amnesty Coalition passport, I would say this is my actual passport. So this is my sole proprietorship passport. This is passport of actually me, and I hand him both items. That way he could, whoever he wants to, I don't know who you're trying to, but neither party is a resident. So
what is the intention of having, rather than just some form of identification, having it called a passport for the nation, for your coalition, Amnesty Coalition? Why
is it called a passport?
Yeah. What is the utility of that? Is it just because that's the highest form of identity?
I mean, I don't know. Just because people kind of know what that is when they hear the word. I don't know.
No intention to use that for travel on international airlines.
I don't know if people have or not. I have no idea.
Interesting. There's a Indian tribe in upstate Indiana, upstate New York, called the Onondaga. They're the part of the Iroquois Nation, and they had their own passport. They are the creators of the sport lacrosse. Are you familiar with this story?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, they flew on their own passports that they created from their own nation. And as my understanding is, they're the only Indian nation, that never signed up with the Board of Indian Affairs. And they've got a treaty with the United States that they are an independent nation, and they've never made contracts other than that treaty. And so they flew internationally to lacrosse events up until I think right around 9/11. Might have been before that, I don't remember. But anyways, I think it was 9/11. And they actually flew for a tournament in London, landed, and then London would not give them access. So they had to fly back. And pretty much that's the end of it. Like, they weren't really able to utilize it anymore.
Interesting.
But they still use it to go to between Indian reservations between Canada and the United States.
Yeah, you can use a passport card to get into Bermuda, the Caribbean islands, Mexico, and Canada.
Yeah.
It says that right on the back of the card.
But not by flight, right? It's got to be by boat or by land. Because now we're back.
Maybe that could be right.
The District of Columbia when you get in the airport.
Yeah, you might be right on that.
Yeah.
That might be why there's a separation. Yeah, it's kind of I never thought about it that way, but you might be right on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun. I'm going to have to jet soon.
Yeah, me too.
Do you think there's a difference between the private part of the airport and the District of Columbia part of the airport, or are they just is just the rules that people are just more allowed to go past without having to go through security if you're doing private flight?
No, I think that the Patriot Act somehow converted all the airports into they're considered public offices essentially now. So they operate under 4 U.S.C. 72. And that's how they're able to do all the crazy shit that they do, because the airport operates in law as though it's not in the states.
Well, to my understanding, if you're flying private, you can just pretty much go right. You don't really have to go through security or anything.
That might be different. That might be why that is. Yeah.
This is similar to the auditors that go into post offices. And when the post office calls the local law, or any person in there calls the local law, they really have almost no jurisdiction whatsoever. They got to call the postal police.
Oh, interesting.
Contract, I think.
Yeah.
They have a contract with the police, don't they?
Well, yeah, I imagine they could. I don't know. But there is such a thing as a postal police. All right, brother. Well, Brandon, it's been a pleasure. It's been fun.
Conversation.
Good conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.